Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Josh and Jason Monday Christian Conspiracy Podcast. I am your host, Josh Monday. If you don't know me, I'm a Christian rapper, devoted husband, father, and Army veteran. And today we have a very special guest, Jeran from Jeranism. How's it going, brother?
Excellent. Yourself?
Good, good,
Good.
man,
Thanks for having
good.
me.
No problem, no problem. Yeah, so a lot has gone on, obviously, since the last time I had you on. I mean, a lot. I
A
mean,
little bit.
yeah,
A
it's a
few
total
things
flip
for sure.
upside down. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, if you want, you can kind of go over with my audience what's going on with yourself and what you've been working on, and what you wanted to talk about.
Sure. Just, doing the regular thing. But yeah, what happened? I went to Antarctica in December of 24 and realized that some of the things I've been saying for the last 10 years are wrong. So, came back and just kind of flipped my opinion of things. And yeah, a lot of people got upset. And it kind of exposed to me the truth movement for being something that I didn't realize it was. And so just having to navigate through that field the last year and kind of reinvent myself as far as making money again or bringing income in. And that's basically what 2025 has been.
It's been pretty tough though, right? Kind of.
Been rough, yeah. I mean, obviously, I always have this opinion that if you're being honest, then everything's going to turn out fine. I'm not sure that's always the case, but at least you kind of have that's my compass, right? That's my uh, direction or opinion that I think is the truth. Is that if as long as you're preaching the truth, as long as you're talking the truth, then you should be okay. Things will work out in the end. So that's my hope, at least.
So your moral compass is the truth. So, all
Yeah,
right.
obviously, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. So and guys, I was gonna go with Jaron. What was happening is Witsit was kind of unsure whether he was gonna go, and me and Jaron were talking back and forth, and I was telling him, "Hey, man, I'll go with you," and Jaron was like, "Yeah, I'll go. I'll have you go." And I talked to Pastor Will Duffy, and then Witsit ended up committing to going, and then I still ended up getting in the golden ticket, so I
Right.
was close to going as well. So what a bunch of stuff you got, what a bunch of craziness you guys went through, man, with all that, you
Yeah,
know.
I mean it's rough, and you always try and plan for things. Witsit and I talked a lot before about what could happen, potentialities, but of course, what ended up happening was something we never even had thought about or discussed, which was the idea of us seeing the same thing but coming back with different ideas of what we saw. So that made it a little bit harder. And yeah, I mean, it was a bad trip as far as what people at home were thinking or started accusing us of. And we knew this on the flight basically to Antarctica. We had already heard people saying things that we were at a soundstage or we weren't where we said we were. So we kind of started to joke about it, but little did we know how big it would be. Looking back, should I have should I have expected that? Maybe, right? Maybe this conspiracy crowd's kind of that way. So, because really it should come down to, um, you have to evaluate evidence and you can't just go by the fact of, well, here's my belief system. And if anything goes against that, then it's fake. Then it's because if you're wrong about what you're, promoting or pushing, then how would you ever know that? If your mindset is, oh, if this is coming against me, this is going against my belief system, so therefore it's a lie, therefore it's fake. And I blame myself too. I operated a lot like that for many years. So it does feel better to be on the other side. I wish I still had some of the friends I had and that kind of thing. But like I said, when you put the truth first, I think that's what's the most important.
Yeah, and I was kind of watching everything from a distance and seeing what's going on, and you know I I was kind of trying to talk to you like in the background as much as possible, man, because I kind of felt like I kind of felt bad how everything was going, basically, if that makes sense. And
Yeah.
I was trying to be there for you as much as possible. And I'm not one to go out and just first of all, I wouldn't call somebody a liar unless I had like a million percent like fact knew
Right.
they were a liar. First of all, because obviously you're destroying someone's character, and you're not just calling someone a liar like the way that, especially with what you guys went and did. Uh, that's like uh that's like destroying somebody's rep for sure by saying someone would lie like to that extent. So
Right.
for me, I was kind of involved a little bit in the Antarctica trip, but I ended up going obviously. But I never with the inkling would have never thought that you guys like didn't go. The only time that I ever had any kind of like weird feeling was when Witsit did the vape thing. But what happened was what they did is they clipped it. They took it as if like he went down to vape, and then he then but they actually but they maneuvered the film to make it seem like he went down to vape to breathe out to make it look like he was breathing. That's the only time I had any kind of weird feeling. I was like, I
Yeah.
showed my wife. I was like, dang, that's kind of weird. But after everything got said and done, obviously, and that's not going to make me think the whole trip was fake. But I was after everything got said and done, obviously, guys, when they are away from their wives, obviously they do things that their wives probably don't like. Let's say you stop drinking and you've been not drinking for a year, and then all of a sudden you're out with your friends on a Antarctica trip and you're taking shots, and then your wife sees you, you're gonna get in trouble, you know. So once I found out it was that, I kind of understood. I mean, how many people have not lied to their wives about something
Right.
or hid something from their wives when they have some type of addiction? I mean, people. I'm not saying that he has like a major addiction to nicotine, but
Right.
if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. And I think that if he could do it over again, obviously, I think what it came down to is if you imagine that there's no cameras there, then he would have got away with what he did.
Yeah.
Right. That's all it is that and it was a spur of the moment kind of thing where he, was in front of the camera, turned on the camera, and then went to breathe out. And when he did, all this smoke came out from the vape. And because he couldn't say, "Oh, I'm vaping," right
It
there,
was it was like
his
it
mind
was
went
like
straight to, "Oh, there's my breath."
it was like the worst thing that could happen
Yeah, it's
because that just
terrible.
that was literally
Yeah,
that
and
was
I kind
literally
of
the
knew the whole thing.
worst because I was like, oh my God, that was bad, bro, because that was like the worst thing that could have happened. But I know that yeah, I never really had the feeling that the whole thing was faked.
Right,
Now, what I never did though is I never married the AE map to like biblical cosmology, like because obviously I believe in biblical cosmology, which is
right,
different than just flat Earth, like strictly flat Earth. I think
right,
when you guys went in, was the AE map was like the map, and then I'm not saying that I never thought that it could have been the AE map. I thought, yeah, that could have been it, that could be
mhm,
true, but I never married the two together. But some people have. And
yeah,
what they're basically saying is that if the AE map is wrong, then the Bible is wrong, basically, because they're saying that there's no possible way that there could be a 24-hour sun in Antarctica at all because they believe the AE map is true. And
right,
then when some people write books about things and they kind of get stuck to like that mindset, then they're gonna automatically just have to say that it's fake, right? So
right,
just because we can't explain something, then doesn't mean that that we have to say go straight till it's fake, So
right. Yeah, no, I think that that's really a sign of conspiracy theorists that I think is a problem. And I'm still a conspiracy theorist, and I was one for 10 years. But I think one of the problems is this idea of, if something goes against my belief system, that I can just call it fake and dismiss it. And I think it comes down to what's easiest for our brains. It is a brain issue, to be honest with you. When I'm out of it now, looking back, I can kind of see that often your brain doesn't want you to be wrong. And like you said, if you've written a book, if you've made videos, if you've been on stage at a flat Earth conference and presented something, if you've generally pushed this idea of the AE map, then when we go down there and show that the AE map probably is wrong or conclusively is wrong, then the people at home, they have your brain has an option to either admit you were wrong and then think of all that you have to do with that. You have to go and apologize to people, rethink things out. You have to relearn a cosmology again or whatever it is, or you just say, "Oh, Jaron Witz, it didn't actually go." So you see that there's one that's a much easier path. Unfortunately, that easy path is also wrong in this case, and and also you're lying to yourself, which is just going to further keep you trapped in a faulty belief system. So that's the way I looked at it, and I did see it that way. I did myself marry the AE map with flat Earth, not
Mhm.
necessarily the Bible, but um, that's the conception that works as far as I saw it. And so I knew that if the AE map was shown to be incorrect, then for me, I would have to go back to believing in the sphere, and that's basically what happened. And again, people can be upset at that all they want. It's me being honest, like I've said from day one, that I'd be honest about my opinion and my beliefs. And at this point, I no longer believe that the Earth is flat or could be flat, and I've started to be able to rationalize some of the reasons I used to think it was um, with my new kind of thought process. So it's harder for sure, man. I lost all my friends. I lost my business or I was making enough money to survive off YouTube before
Yeah.
and now not even close. So you do lose a lot in that path. So people look at it and they call me sellout or whatever, say I got paid off. That's just ridiculous. But people need to start thinking about that too, that the idea of just paying everybody off is pretty insane. There was about 70 employees down there at Union Glacier, and you would have to believe then that all of them have been given money, told that the sun actually sets, but we're going to pretend it doesn't. We're going to fake the sun in the sky or whatever it is. But to think that that's how the government keeps secrets is insane, right? We should know that you keep secrets by not telling them, right?
Yeah.
You don't keep secrets by telling as many people as you can and giving out a bunch of millions of dollars here and here and here. Because what happens is now you've got a bunch of liabilities that are running around. Imagine if you're the elite, you're the controllers of this world, and you've got 70 employees down at Antarctica, some base where they're all liars, and you've paid them all $1 million to fabricate some story. Well, that's a lot of potential issues, right? Any one of those people could all of a sudden feel like, I don't feel like lying anymore. It's hurting my soul. I'm going to tell the world. And then they report, oh, here's what we're actually doing. We're lying by. Well, we've never had that instance. And again, it would just be too many liabilities. You don't keep secrets by telling them to as many people as possible and paying them off. It's quite the opposite, right? The best way to keep secrets is just never reveal them. And that's the best
Yeah.
way. So, seeing all those people down there really shook me because as we started talking to some of them have been employees down there for 15 years, and then getting to know what they do every year and how they operate and what kind of people they are, and how they do their little stint down here for 4 months, and then they go and they take 4 months off, and then they go do 4 months in Alaska or something, being like a tour guide, and then they come back and they do it every year. Just getting to know those people, or kind of talking to them, and just realized how kind of insane my former belief was. Um, and it was just really a belief before that I knew that the South had to be a lie if the flat Earth were true, right? Because we were all taught about the South. We're told that it's the opposite of the North. Basically, there's 85 degrees south and there's 85 degrees north. It's just the opposite. And we're told that 6 months later, it's a flip of the seasons and all that. And so for the Earth to be flat, you can chalk that up to being, well, the South must be a lie. But the problem with that is I didn't never really verified that. I was just that was kind of my preconceived idea. And so when you have a preconceived bias like that, you do fit everything into that box, right? So when you go down, you're looking for 24-hour sun footage in the South, you maybe find one or two like we did, and then we see that it's looped, and you just dismiss the whole thing, right? No, no, they looped it there. It's fake. Therefore, it can't be true. But it's because my belief system needed that to be the case. In order for the flat Earth to be true, or at least the conception of the AMAP, you need the South not to be what we were taught. So going down there, once you verify that it is what we're taught, then you kind of have to come back and go, okay, well, now we got a problem, because how could you have a flat Earth where all these things are symmetrical? There's a symmetry to the Earth. There's a 6 months difference. Stand at the North Pole, and the sun will go around you. Excuse me. The sun will go around you left to right, and there's no way to change that, right? I mean, if you're at the north and the sun's going around you, it's going left to right. You can't look a different direction and get it to go the other way or anything. It's just the way it goes. And then when you're in the south, it's the complete opposite. Now all of a sudden the sun goes right to left. And again, you can't do anything about it. It doesn't matter which direction you look. It's the sun's always moving around you right to left. So in a world like that, I believe God told us exactly what the shape of the earth is. And it's pretty easy to determine once you get over your preconceived notions, or once you get over this idea that we all kind of came to, which I think is a legit complaint that we all had with the with the heliocentric model with the globe Earth, right? Because it's a little bit funky. It's a little bit weird. I'll admit that, every day of my life, that nobody feels like they live on a sphere. Nobody's
It's
walking
really
around like,
weird.
oh,
Yeah.
yeah, it's weird. It's a weird thing. It's completely antithetical to our uh, experience every day, right? None of us experience being on any kind of sphere. None of us experience spinning. None of us experience any of that. But I think there's other things that we don't experience too that have been determined to be the truth. I always use the one of like, is there bugs in our tummy? If you just didn't know about microscopes and didn't know about what actually goes on inside of our body, that seems pretty crazy. If somebody said, hey, there's a bunch of millions of living creatures inside you, moving around in your stomach, you're not going to believe that. But now I believe that everybody does believe that. And that's because we have microscopes, and that's because they can take bile or whatever out of your stomach, and they can put it under the microscope and see, oh shit, there is little moving creatures in there. So it's kind of the same thing where things aren't always as they appear. And I would like to be in a place where we can trust our senses, but we also know that that's not always the case. Um, and so, yeah, it's just a matter of coming to grips with things that I didn't formally really understand. The whole idea of, how does gravity hold water upside down, in a globe, is just a misunderstanding of what the actual belief is, or what the actual idea or conception behind the globe Earth is. So I think once I was able to get through some of those things, it made more sense to me. Is it still weird? Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
It's
But
got
at
to
the
be
same
weird.
time,
It's got to be weird for you, bro.
it's
Because
weird. It's weird. And who was I talking to the other day? I was talking to somebody. we were both kind of saying, well, there's even times that we still think to ourselves like, why is that's so weird. Um, but it's just, like the flying through space thing. Will you ever get to a point where you're like, I understand or I get it that, I feel, you're not going to ever feel it. You just have to accept the evidence for what it
So,
is.
so
Go ahead.
I'll ask you. So do you believe we're orbiting at 66,000 miles an hour or 18.5 feet per second? Like, believe we're
I
doing that around the sun, or what's your thought on that? Do you believe we could be geocentric, maybe, or
Yeah, I do think
what's your
that
thoughts?
geocentrism is a possibility. I think that everything in the heliocentric model works better when you're talking about the Earth going around the sun. But as far as do I know those things? No, right? So the good thing about going to Antarctica is I was able to show myself the shape of the Earth quite conclusively as far as where the sun sets, as far as in the south, something I didn't realize before. Seeing the South Celestial Pole in the sky and watching the stars turn the opposite direction.
So
Yeah,
can I
go
ask
ahead.
you a question? When did
Sure.
you guys watch the stars go in the opposite direction? Just curious. Was it when you were in Antarctica, or
No.
no, obviously not. I'm sorry.
Yeah. In
That's a
Punta.
dumb question because you guys that's so
There was
stupid.
no night there.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Punta
So
Arenas is where you guys saw it. I'm sorry.
right.
My
Yeah, and
bad.
it was
I'm
kind of exactly where it was supposed to be. I
It
mean,
was
as far
obviously no stars in the sky when you guys just do 24-hour sun. But anyways,
it was
okay, so
yeah.
so you saw that at Punta Arenas. So let's say somebody wanted to make it. Let's say some flat earthers wanted to get together. Let's say like two or three, go
Yeah,
to Punta Arenas. Do
absolutely.
you think that that would help and assist people to maybe have a better idea of what what's happening
Yeah, I think
celestially?
sure. I think if people went to Punta Arenas, let's say I didn't go to Antarctica and I only went as far as Punta Arenas, I think
Yeah.
I still would come back and have changed my belief
Okay.
because of what you see there is completely different than the flat Earth model calls for. And I think because we all live in the north, none of us think about the south. And so when you're in Punta Arenas, and if you kind of picture yourself being at the very tip of South America, right? So you're at the very tip of South America and you're looking west. So if you're thinking of that way and you think of any flat Earth conception, we know that the sun comes around and has to go off to the right because if you're looking west and the sun needs to get over to Australia, we know that it's going to be above Australia's head in a few hours. So when you see the sun go, it goes to the left. It goes that way. You're looking west and it's going towards the south. So I mean, it makes no sense in any flat Earth model because what it comes down to is it means that the sun has to change direction at some point because we know that's the direction the sun's going. So it's once you see that sunset going right to left, and then it's barely under the horizon for a few hours, and you're looking south. The sun's going left, you're looking south, and then it rises again. So what you have to realize is in that time that you saw it set and then rise, it was above the heads of people in Australia. And that's so the only way that flat Earth could be true, the only way is if there is two suns. If there's two suns that are identical, that do different things, that one heats Australia while the other one's heating over here, uh, that's a possibility, I guess. I mean, I don't believe that at all. I don't think that that's biblical at all. So,
I don't think it's biblical at all. Yeah.
yeah,
I
no,
don't think
I
that's
don't think it's
biblical.
possible. So I don't think it's possible. I don't think we've ever had any examples of that. People who have like said, "Oh, I have seen a second sun, Crow 777 saw it," or it's like no, they're talking about like that little flare thing or a little lens flare or something that's. But this would have to be two physical suns because when we were down in Antarctica, did a time lapse of the sunspots, right? And the sunspots are identical to the ones being seen at the north, only they're upside down. So there is that would have to be two suns where one of them is going toward the north and the other one's going south, but nobody ever sees them split up and go in different directions. So it just became impossible for me to rectify any further a flat Earth. Now, I'm still open to it. That's one thing that's about me. In fact, I want the Earth to be flat. So I want the flat Earthers to figure it out because I can't figure it out. And
Yeah, of course, of course.
but
So
that's just where I'm at.
So what? Yeah, guys. So yeah, the Bible says that God made two great light to rule the day, lesser light to rule the night, and then He made the stars also. That's all we have. We don't have anything about two suns. So when
Right.
people try to say that, and then also when people try to say that there's extra lands where there's all these different lands with different suns, I mean, I only see biblically. I'm not talking about if you don't believe in the Bible, then obviously that doesn't matter to you. But the Bible is saying that there's, God created two great lights, greater light to rule the day, lesser light to rule the night. So I'm not seeing two suns. Okay, so I think it'd be a good idea, man, for some of us to get together, some flat earthers to get together and go to Punta Arenas
Yeah.
in December,
Yeah.
maybe for like a 5 or 6 day trip, and then do some observations. You know what I mean? I think that'd
Yeah.
be smart, and then we could see which way the stars are going. Which obviously people have that's been an argument a long time for in debates. I know that Witsit was debating that a lot back when he was on the debate floor. And
Right.
I think that'd be somewhere that I think we should all kind of go because most of us can't afford to get to Antarctica. Obviously, it's it's a good what 15 to 25,000 at least, right?
Yeah. Yeah. You can go down there for that marathon that they have every December for like
But
21.
you got to run the marathon. You got to get be in shape and be ready.
Well, you can get down there and say I don't feel good today. Maybe you don't
Yeah,
have to run it, but
yeah.
yeah, if you want to get out. But again, it's
Be
20.
training. How much is it for the marathon?
I think 21,000.
21,000. Yeah, see,
But that doesn't
that's
get you. That's not your plane flight to Punta Arenas either. So that you're probably talking 25,000 total out the door. Minimum
yeah.
you're going to spend there.
So
So
yeah, so that's so you do you believe that if you go to Punta Arenas and you're a flat earther that believes in the AE map, let's say you have no other map, that you believe that that's at least going to show you some good celestial proof of to change probably not change maybe change their belief totally, but at least have that celestial proof of what you guys saw probably in Antarctica, right?
yeah, I do think that. I mean, at this point now, I realize that kind of some of that is futile. Like, so there's Google Earth, right? Which
Yeah.
you can go to Google Earth and you can. That's the Earth mapped on a sphere. We know that. It doesn't mean you live on a sphere. It could be just a computer program. But regardless, it does show observations from wherever you're at. And so everybody we've ever known, anybody that you've ever known in your life, has been mapped somewhere on that sphere. And then their observations match what the sphere model calls for. So in order for it to, like, for instance, if you just went to Google Earth right now and went to Punta Arenas and then watched the sunset by moving the time thing forward and go to that certain date and watch what the sun does, and then you kind of that must be the case, because if it's not, then somebody would have exposed Google Earth for being wrong. But nobody's ever exposed Google Earth for being wrong about observations because it's right. So, again, do I think that going to Punta Arenas would tell somebody something? Yes. Do I think that they need to go there? No. At this point, I think that you can trust Google Earth. I know it sounds crazy to say, but the reason I say that is because you can't find one instance of where we can't.
Mhm.
So, if you cannot find one person on Earth that says, "Hey, I live here in Minnesota and the sky does something different than what Google Earth says," if we can't find anybody doing that, then it's probably the case that it's right about everybody. So, meaning that if, let's say, you went to Google Earth and it's showing the sunset right to left on Google Earth, but then in real life it actually goes the other direction, which it's needed to do for a flat Earth, well, somebody would have exposed that already. So,
Have
you
have you went to
know,
Punta Arenas on Google Earth the exact time that you were there and see what the sun did and it did exactly what pretty
yep,
much what you guys saw?
everything, yeah, it's identical. And it
Okay.
really, that's what kind of opened my eyes to everything, is I had an idea going down there of, because even Austin and I talked, like, what if we do see the sun? It's like, well, there'll be something else wrong that we'll find with the observation that we'll at least have some data to come back with that will, but it ended up being that basically it just nailed everything that the globe predicts, and the flat Earth didn't predict anything right. So that's why it kind of became almost, impossible for me to come back and remain a flat earther, because I was so drastically wrong about some of the predictions that I thought would be the case if the Earth were flat. And really, that's our job, is to test all things, right? Prove all things before you jump into them. So my problem was is that we never proved that the South was a lie. We
Mhm.
we had not enough information about it, and so I just assumed it was a lie, and then built an entire belief system or an idea about the Earth being flat around my incorrect assumption that the South wasn't what we were taught. But when you go down there and you see, for instance, if you go to like 51 degrees south, or we were at 53. If you go to 53 degrees south and watch on Google Earth what the sun does on December 14th or 15th when we were down there, and then you go to the north at 53 degrees north, and then go to 6 months in the future, that the sun does the complete opposite, right? So it's the same motion, the same exact angles, but just the opposite way. So now it's going to the right. So it's just one of those things where you're like, man, this seems like the Earth is symmetrical, and it seems like we can't disprove that. Like, you can't. You'd have to be able to disprove that 40 degrees south is different than 40 degrees north, but it's really not. As far as what the sky does, it's just the opposite 6 months later. So, it just became impossible for me to rectify that with anything other than the globe, because the globe answers all questions, which is weird. And it's something that I didn't see before. That, again, we might ask on a flat Earth, well, why is the sun and moon upside down? Okay, we have an answer, right? We say, oh, put something on the ceiling and you have an A and B on it, and you go to the other side of the room. Okay, so we can kind of answer that. As far as the stars going the opposite direction, it's a stretch. You start trying to, oh, well, that, it's our perspective, and it's because of the the, what do they say? The anti-crepuscular rays send light to a different direction behind you. So we have all these little ad hoc excuses, but the answer to all of them is just, it's a sphere. If you say that, then everything else makes sense. Meaning, the sun going backwards in the south is exactly what would happen and what's predicted on a sphere. And so when you see an upside down sun and moon, that's exactly what is anticipated on the sphere. And as far as sunset times and the direction that the sun goes, all that is exactly described or explained when you just put the Earth on a sphere. So as weird as it is, and I think one of the problems might be that globers make it almost sound like too they make it sound so obvious that we're on a sphere, but at the same time, we know that it's a weird thing, right? So I think like if they would have been more in the camp of like, well, no, it is weird, but the evidence takes us there, right? Like if everybody just admitted, like nobody on Earth feels like they're spinning, nobody on Earth feels like they're on a globe. So I think when they give this kind of opinion, almost like it's second nature and we should know this, it's giving us the idea of like that it's normal, that everyone feels normal about it. No, it's just because most people adhere to evidence, whereas we did not, or I did not. Right? I
So
kind of went by what evidence fits my worldview. I'll go by that evidence, and then everything else I'll just dismiss.
So at this point right now, you're not like 100% that we're orbiting the sun or chasing the sun at 500,000 miles an hour, 550,000 miles an hour, or orbiting it at 60,000 miles an hour, sorry,
No, I mean,
66,600 miles an hour and spinning it at 1,000 miles an hour. Do you feel like we're doing all that or you're not 100% on that yet? You're just key
I
on
would say that
the,
no, I'm 100% that the Earth's a sphere, or at
okay.
least 99% as much as you can be. I don't want to say 100 because I do have the door open. If anybody, and that's the thing I want to tell people is that go figure it out. If you figure it out, I'll be a flat earther tomorrow. So the
Yep.
problem with is they want me to be a flat earther when there's nothing figured out, right? They want me to come back to flat Earth, even though every answer the sphere answers and the flat Earth now has nothing. I mean, really, the best proofs of the flat Earth that we have are globe evidence, right? So, meaning, what are the big things that they say? We see too far, right? That's one thing that everybody says, and that is the case. So I feel like if Globers would have actually been honest about that and said, yeah, we do see too far for this reason, rather than they came out like, no, we don't see too far, that's BS, that it's, and they try and fit everything into their little math equation. But really what it comes down to is we live in a world with an atmosphere that acts like a lens. We know if you take a drop of water and drip it on a piece of paper, whatever letters underneath that drop of water, it gets a little bit bigger. You can actually see it's like a magnifying glass. It's a little drop of water. So we have to realize that the atmosphere is made of water. That's what we're actually looking through. So you will see further than the geometry says, right? So the geometry is we don't live in a geometry land where everything's straight lines and that's what we get when we do the math on okay how much should be hidden from this distance, and it might, let's say it's 60 feet supposed to be hidden, and then you go out and you observe and you see further than that. Well, it's because you're looking through an atmosphere that can actually see further than the geometric edge of the Earth. So once I started realizing that, and I used like a Melodome, he did a couple examples for me, and we kind of did some observations to where we put like a thumbtack on the backside of a globe where
Yeah, I
you
saw
couldn't
that.
see it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then by adding a lens in between you and the camera, then all of a sudden you can see further than the edge of that globe.
Lifts it
So
up a
once
little
you
bit.
see that, you're like, oh, so that's why. So again, there's all these little things that I used to think were, like spinning 1,000 miles per hour. I just dismissed it outright because it sounds insane, right? Spinning a
Yep.
thousand miles per hour, we would all know water would fly off into space, and but really, what it comes down to is if you take an item that you have in right now, here's a little remote control. Now, make this turn once in a day. That you wouldn't even see it. It's moving so slowly. So actually, the Earth is moving so slowly, you wouldn't even be able to see it move from space. You'd be watching the Earth. It's spinning 1,000 miles per hour. You wouldn't see it moving because it's huge. So I think that once I started kind of understanding this idea and realizing that, you know, the idea, the concepts are really a brain game. They're really, you just have to kind of iron them out in your head and think to yourself, okay, when we think of a sphere, every sphere we've ever seen is small, right? Like a yoga ball, a baseball, basketball, golf ball. Even if you go and you're pulling up a universe sandbox or a program that shows you all the planets in space, they're all small. They're small in space. You don't see anything big. We don't. So our brains can't even conceptualize the idea of an Earth so big. It's a sphere, but it's just enormous. It's actually so big that the ground is flat. So, that's another thing. People are like, no, all spheres have a curvature to them. It's like, yeah, all spheres have curvature to them. And some spheres are so big that if you're so small, you would not notice that curve. So that's another thing, right? That I used to think I would used to expect to see curvature, and now I realize why you never will. It's just so little. I did the math, the backwards math, and came out with for 660 feet, which the easiest way to think about that, it's like two football fields, NFL football fields, end to end with end zones, right? So it's a long way. In 660 feet on the Earth, there's only an eighth inch of a curve, which is a nickel lying down. Okay. So just that thought alone should wake you up to the fact of, oh, we'll never see curve. You just won't see it because it's too small. And then people think, well, it's exponential. So doesn't it keep growing as distance goes? It's like, yeah, but we don't ever deal with that. It's just not something like you'll never. I used to wonder about the 8 inches per mile squared. I was like, I used to say in my videos, like they never taught us this in school for a reason, right? Like they didn't want us to think about the curvature, so they didn't. Well, the reason that they don't teach it is because you'll never need it. It's just absolutely unneeded in any walk of life, even in my opinion. And I'm still having an argument with Dave McKeegan and a couple other guys about this on the globe side because I'm in the camp now that we don't take curvature into account for any reason when we're building anything. And they all have this belief of, no, we do need it when we build bridges. I'm like, no, you don't. You would never use it. It's absolutely um, unneeded because everything where you are is you're going to build level where you are, right? So if you're going to build a bridge, you have to build the part that you're building there level. And then if you move down a little bit to build the next part, you're building it level and you keep going. So you would never need to take it into account. Now, again, they always say, well, but if you look at the Verrazano Bridge, the top is, 1 1/8 inch different than the bottom. It's like, okay, mathematically, yes, but that's not taken into account. So remember, we used to read all those books that said, like, no engineer, no railroad engineer, no canal builder, no railroad installer, any of those people ever take curvature of the earth into account. Now, we all took that as flat earthers as meaning, oh, the earth's flat.
Hmm.
If they don't take
Well,
anything into account, then the earth must be flat. But the
yeah,
real reason is that the earth is so big you don't need to know, you don't need to do it. So
yeah. How come we never see curvature like looking left to right? Like I just came back from a cruise. I was on a cruise for 9 days,
all right.
and I was out in the ocean like for for a long for like at least 4 days, and
Right.
how come we never see curvature looking from left to right? You know what I mean? Like there's a big open area. Like I mean I can understand looking straight because you
Okay.
can probably you pretty much can only see about what 3.5 to 4 miles with your eyes basically. I can understand maybe that. But how come we never see it left to right? Like if I'm looking, I mean, that's a lot of miles I'm looking all the way left to right. Does that make sense?
It kind of does and kind of doesn't. So I used to think the same way, but now I realize that how could you see further left to right than you can straight ahead unless you're on a globe? So think about what you're saying. You're saying, so we know that our eye line is the radius of a circle, right? Meaning
Yeah.
that you can only see the same distance in every direction.
So you
So
can only see 3.5 miles basically in every direction as you're looking, is what you're saying, right?
well, depending on how high up you are, but yeah, if
Yeah,
you're
yeah,
like
yeah.
yeah, if you're like the 6 foot tall level, you're at a beach or you're right on a boat, small boat, and you're looking at the ocean. Yeah, technically you should only be able to see the same distance in every direction. So
Yeah.
the idea of, and I used to think the same thing, which is I can only see 3 miles this way, but I could see from say Monterey to Santa Cruz, which is like 25 miles across. So if that's 25 miles, but I'm only able to see three out, you start to have this problem where you're like, well, what would the reason for that be? Now at this point, I think it's because that's where the edge of the earth comes into play is 3 miles forward from you. But as far as left to right, yeah, I mean, the amount of curvature that you'd see would be so minuscule. Like, what kind of distance do you think you were looking left to right? Give me some idea of what you're looking
I don't know.
left.
I'm just let's say on the side of a cruise ship. I mean, I'm looking all the
So, what
way
would you
left and
think?
all
Give
the
me
way right.
some idea of what you're,
How many
how,
miles?
yeah.
I don't know. I mean, who
Let's say there
knows,
was
man?
like
Maybe
let's say there was a lighthouse over
let's say
here.
it's let's say it's like 40 miles or so, right?
Okay. Yeah, no, that's good. So, I mean, if you take 40 miles and do the 8 inches per mile squared on that one, just, oops, sorry, I just wanted to do
Well, it's
that.
going to be 60 times 4, right? Is how many
Uh,
feet? Because 10 miles is 66, right?
I don't know. So it's wait, you said 40 miles, so times 8 and then times 40 again, right? If we're doing
40
40
times
miles
40 times 8 and then
divided
divided
by
by
12.
12, right?
Yeah, so
Yeah.
what do you got? 1,000 feet about?
1,000 feet. Yeah.
Okay. So now if we take 40 miles, which is times 5280, just to get the feet involved there. So you're talking about a left to right feet of 211,200. Okay, so imagine you're looking 211,000 feet across this way, and you're asking why we don't see 1,000 feet of change. So now you have to kind of picture that really you're not talking about because everything would be level, meaning you're not looking for a drop right or a drop left, because then you would be talking about 1,000 feet. So really, you're only talking about a hump of what, like 500 feet, right? If the full drop is 1,000, and you're looking, so now you're looking for a 500 foot bump in a 211,000 foot expanse. Well, the degrees of that or the percentages of that is so low, right? So if you just did 1,000 divided by 211, 1,000 divided by 211,000, you're talking about a half of a percent, less than
And
a half of a
what
percent.
Jaron did, just so people know, is you're taking the miles and putting it into feet. That's what you're doing.
Right, because
The
if we're
40
talking
miles into feet.
feet of
Yeah.
curve, I mean, you get kind of confused if you're saying, "Hey, it's only 40 miles of curve. It's
Yeah,
40 miles
yeah.
distance, and we should see 1,000 feet of curve." Well, that sounds like a lot of feet to see. But when you're talking about it's 211,000 feet, and we're trying to see 1,000 feet of curve, like I just said, what you're talking about is a deviation of less than one half of a percent. So is that something that we should expect to see with our eyes? I don't think so. Now, could it be measured? Probably. Probably you could if but again, you're talking about a horizon line that's kind of fuzzy. The horizon isn't an actual location because of the way we see things. So it's kind of becomes futile. Again, we're looking for something that I think would be very difficult for humans to see, which is a curvature on such a small level. So the Earth is just so big that, and so anyway, getting back to what the best three evidences or whatever of flat Earth are. The first one is we see too far. Well, that's what the globe says, right? So the globe does say that that's why they add refraction, is because you're actually seeing further than that geometric edge. The other one that they always say is,
Water,
uh,
water lies level would probably be one that people would
right,
say. Yeah.
water lies level, right,
If
and
it's
that's
75% water and it lies level, then how could it be a globe? Is what a lot of people would say.
correct, right. And so the problem with that is, of course, that we're talking about our experience locally. So locally, water will always find level, and that's why we use it in a spirit level. That's why we use it to build things, is because locally, you're fine. But we don't think about, well, if I'm level here, does it still count level a mile that way? Well, no. If you went a mile that way and then did level there, yes, it's going to be level there. But that's going to be different than where you're at, and not by much, right? In a mile, it's only different to 8 inches. So it'd be very difficult for you to even to see, or how would we ever notice that? So even if you talk about what I said, for every 660 feet, it's an eighth of an inch, which is a nickel. I mean, if you start thinking about that in the ocean, waves, little undulations are infinitely bigger than that. So you you would never see the Earth curve. You wouldn't see it curve. It's not the way curvature works, because wherever that person is over there is level to them. So again, water does find its level. That's what the globe says. And I think that flat earthers, we just assumed that level means horizontal. And it doesn't, because level is in relation to something else. So that the level in relation to the center of the earth, or so basically the level of the ocean on the earth is a curve. Now, again, people lose their mind over that, but that's, if level and horizontal are the same, then why do we have two different words, right? If you're, that's what flat earthers believe, is that they're identical words, level and horizontal. But then we would have two words that mean the exact same thing. Well, that's not the case. One of them means one thing and one of them means something else.
Does the when you're looking from Punta Arenas, can you see the sun go in the opposite direction that we'd see?
Yep.
You can.
Yep. It goes. So imagine you're looking west.
Hmm.
The sun goes to your left. Whereas where we are, picture you go to you're in California, you
Yeah.
watch the sunset when you want to. So when you watch the sunset, no matter what day of the year it is, no matter what month, the sun will set left to right. Meaning if you're looking west, the sun sets diagonally left to right. It's
Yeah.
something that we all see all the time. We just never even think about it.
Yeah.
That's the way everybody in the north watches the sun. It sets left to right. Now, when you go past the equator, it flips, and now it sets right to left. Complete opposite. It's upside down. And again, it's easily explained when you think of, oh, because again, here, let me explain why it's a paradox on a flat Earth. Okay, so if two people are looking in the same direction, so two people are looking west, and let's say there's somebody in the north and somebody in the south. So let's just say somebody's in New York and somebody's in Brazil. Okay, and they're both looking west and they're watching the same exact sunset. So this is the same sunset on the same day for both of them. That the people in the north would see the sun setting left to right, going above, down, or overboard to the north, what the flat Earth calls for. But the person in the south would see the exact same sun, but they would see it going left. So the problem with that is that's a paradox. That's, you can't have two people looking in the same direction, watching the same item, and then both see it go in different directions. It's impossible to rectify. Now, the crazy thing about that is that's what we actually see. So we do have to rectify it, because that's the observation. Even though I just said it's impossible for us to rectify how that could happen. However, there's one thing you can do which solves it, which is, what if one person is on the top of a ball and another person's on the bottom of a ball? Oh, guess what? They would both see the sun go in opposite directions. That's what the sphere calls for. So again, all these observations, and there isn't any that it doesn't account for, meaning that I used to have such a problem with the globe, but when you look at our observations, what we all see, there's only one shape that's ever been used that answers all the questions, and that's the sphere, unfortunately, um, because it's weird and it's something different. And before I would even badmouth it, um, and that's the hardest thing for me to see, is some of these Christians that are so hell bent on um, what they think the Bible's trying to tell them or whatever, that they've really given up on a lot of what the Bible does say about not getting involved in conspiracies and not believing the rantings of people. It says a lot of these kind of things that people just ignore. And instead they go for something that the Bible doesn't really necessarily say outright. I don't think the Bible says, hey guys, the earth is flat. I think that the conceptions that it gives are certainly in line with the flat earth, and they're what ancient people believed anyway. So they wouldn't be much different than other people in the world, right? All these ancient cosmologies were all a flat kind of dome like snow globe, right? That's how Babylonians and the Chaldeans and you name it, all these old cultures felt that way. So it wouldn't be surprising to me that the Bible also feels that way. But it doesn't ever come out and say, you know, outright that the Earth's flat. And it does have some weird things, right? The Earth is hung on nothing. I mean, I don't really know what that.
There's some stuff that you can kind of like, like all the stars are going to fall to the earth. That's going to be
Right.
the sixth seal. And um, what happens there is basically there's a giant earthquake, right? So if you had a firmament with the moon, sun, and the stars in the firmament, giant earthquake happens, the stars all fall to the earth, right? So that's the sixth seal in Revelation, and that's also talked about in the book of Isaiah. And then also something that would be the firmament, right? So the firmament would be something that
True.
seems like it would work better on the flat earth, right?
True.
You have a firmament, and if you have the moon, sun, and the stars within the firmament, then there's no problem with all the stars falling to the earth. But
Right.
if you have a globe and you have a firmament, there would still have to be a firmament, right? So now the thing about the firmament in a heliocentric model, it turns into something that's a lot different because it
Much
would have
more.
to be it would have to be outside of all the galaxies, right? And all these stars have to be within that firmament. And then if all the stars fell to the earth, then that wouldn't work. But now if you have a geocentric with the stars being a lot closer and the sun and moon closer, and then I guess if you have a globe, like which is what your belief is, and you still have a firmament, and the stars could fall to the earth that way as well too. But I mean, that's one of the main things is that people would probably contest would be the firmament.
Yeah, I
And
think that's probably the main thing that I've heard from people is that. And then also, Jesus was taken up to a mountain where he could see the whole earth.
Oh, that's more, that one is where you can see what he's seeing is all the empires. So that one, that's kind of like
Could be
a
metaphorical, right? I mean,
that's kind of like a side note, one you could kind of use, but there's
right.
there's more stuff, which I have a whole entire biblical cosmology episode that I go over,
Well,
and
I appreciate you being open to the idea, or at least compared to other people, where like I said, they went straight to "you must be lying" and you're faking this. Whereas with you, you seem to be trying to rectify what we say we saw with what could be true, and you're just not jumping on any bandwagon and saying for sure I know Jaren's a liar, or for sure I know that
oh
they're.
man,
Yeah.
to say that
Oh,
about a man, dude, just to say that about another man, people don't understand
oh, it's
how
it's so weird
how
to me.
how crazy it is. Yeah, because I just can't do that. And the Bible does talk about slandering, and it also talks about judging people, and it does talk about and also being divisive, and there's a lot of things the Bible talks about that a lot of people do kind of forget about. But we got to understand that to call another man a liar, like me, like we're talking on Zoom, so I guess it wouldn't matter as much. But if you're in person with another person, then you know what I
Yeah.
mean. You would never say that. Do you think that you would
No.
call like I had a debate with Craig, from Fight the Flat Earth. We were talking
Right.
about Christianity versus secular humanism, and the way that he was speaking to me, obviously I'm Christian now, so I wouldn't really be like so aggressive. But if I was in person with him, he would never act like that to me.
Yeah.
I
No
just
way.
know for a fact. So it just becomes a
I
people
think
don't
that the
understand. Like you gotta have integrity in life, like you can't just call
right.
somebody a liar unless you're a million percent sure.
Well, and the reason for that is too because if you know that if that person knows that you're wrong, what their opinion changes if you're right. So this is why you never heard me call people shills, is because I'm a researcher. I'm doing research and I knew that if let's say I call Eric Dubay a shill, if he's not one, now what does he think of me? How could I ever expect him to uh, appreciate my research or my audience or anything because he knows that I'm wrong. So this is what happened with me throughout my little YouTube career is that all these people who came out and said Jaren's a shill, Jaren's this, well, I know that I'm not. So right away they discount themselves, right? And then you start hearing these people that say things that they would never say to you in person, and you just realize that man, I mean, I really think that the internet has been a problem because of that one reason. I think it's allowed people that would have never otherwise been able to do things that they are now doing. Um, for instance, this whole idea of everybody's a man, right? So every girl that you've ever seen on TV, Cameron Diaz, they're all men, right?
Yeah.
Mostly men who probably have never touched a woman, but it's because they, for the first time in their lives, have been able to reject women by going on YouTube and saying this, Cameron Diaz is a man. So it just allows men that would have otherwise just been in their mom's basement, locked away and not really been able to do much. It gives them this voice that they all of a sudden can be out. So just think of all the dirty, scummy people in the world. Well, now we've given them a platform to where they can go online and they can act like they're somebody that they're not, or they can pretend to be tough when they don't have to back that up, which none of those things are really true in person. In
Yeah.
person, you can go act tough like at a bar a couple times maybe, and then one time you're going to get clocked, and then you're going to realize, oops, I shouldn't talk like that because I'm going to end up getting hit.
Yeah.
So on the internet, there's really no hitting. So you just keep doing that you go to the bar every night and you're just talking smack. And again, eventually people in that bar probably think that you're pretty tough because, oh man, this guy talks smack but he's not tough because in real life it wouldn't happen.
Yeah.
So, I do think that the internet's a problem. I think that this is maybe why they let it out. I always had this question of why would they give us the internet? Why would they allow us to all communicate? Well, it's really changed the world. I mean, I don't know about you. I was born 1980, but
I'm 42, so you're
okay,
right
yeah,
there. Yeah.
yeah. So the 80s and 90s were just a much different
83.
time, and I think
Yeah.
that they were better, and I think that that's objectionably show because I almost feel like I ask people I say like, does the internet make your life better? Like think about your life in the 80s and 90s and kind of picture growing up and picture, I don't know about you guys, we used to eat dinner at the table with my mom and dad, like every night we'd play outside after school. They'd call us in. We'd go eat dinner as a family. There was all these things. I only needed my dad's income. My mom was able to stay home with us kids and kind of help my dad with his business. And like, if you start looking at, is my life better? I'm not sure that's the case. You would think that the internet would make our lives better, but it's like more information, more nonsense, more chances for them to psyop you, more news,
Distractions.
right?
Yeah.
Distractions, and it really keeps your mind out of where it should be, which should be on your family, should be on your wife, your relationships, your friends. And I
Should
feel
be
like
on,
we've gone away
I
from that.
believe it should be on God. It should be on the
Good.
Bible. And there's a lot of things that are created that make it so that you are obviously focusing on other things and not
Right.
focusing on that. And you're not getting any chance to actually be sitting there silent with God or praying
Right.
or able to read the Bible where you can concentrate. There's a lot of things that it's stopping. And obviously there's at a fingertip, a touch of a button, people that have issues with like lust or pornography or
Oh yeah.
anything,
Trouble.
they have a touch of a button. They can look up whatever they want, blonde hair, blue eyed,
Right.
black
And
hair,
that's
whatever, you know?
that's why it's free. That's why
Yeah,
it's
of
there.
course.
Because again, we don't have anything for free. But like they say, if something's free, then you're the product. So
Something, yeah,
yeah.
something's up. But yeah, so things in the Bible, like Proverbs 30, 5 through 6, every word of God is pure. He is a shield to those who trust him. Do not add to his words. There's tons of things like in Titus 1, 2, it says God cannot lie. Hebrews 6:18, it says it's impossible for God to lie. So there's certain things that make someone like me or someone that's a Christian when we like read the word, Genesis in the context that we read it as a biblical cosmologist. What happens is it says that Moses, he spoke to God face to face, right? It says it in Numbers 12 verses 4 through 8, and also in Exodus 33 verse 10, it says that he spoke to God like a friend, right?
Mhm.
Face to face as a man. So when we see stuff like that and then we read the book of Genesis, the way that we interpret it, obviously, what happens, I think, with other pastors that believe in a globe is they're taking the word firmament and they're turning it into space. And they're not turning it into what I think the true Hebrew word was, which would be solid, like rakia.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So now what happened is Rob Skiva had a big influence on a lot of us, right? That's
Right.
that's that's
Yeah.
I think that's one thing I think that kind of got me. He was one that kind of hooked me. And then Pastor Dean Odell just a little bit. I know that what he said about about Antarctica, just put that to the side.
Yeah.
But and that so once you start looking at the Bible through that lens, of taking it literal, and then you start reading it like in that way, it is definitely hard to once you do believe in flat Earth and biblical cosmology, it's very hard to pull away from that and believe
Right.
in a globe. I mean, especially for me because obviously I'm always studying and I could be wrong. But I'm not the type of person that's gonna just I'm not gonna just totally disrespect somebody and not talk to them anymore because they believe in the globe like yourself. You switch to a globe. I
Right.
never I never thought in my mind it like, hey dude, I'm not gonna talk to Jaron anymore. I'm more like
Well,
the
you're
type of
very much in the
person.
minority there.
Yeah, I'm the type of person that, man, I love everybody. I would rather try to attract you to the faith of Christianity. I'd rather try to like be a brother to you and everybody that I talk to. I'd rather be like a brother to everybody, no matter what their beliefs are, because I'm not trying to judge anybody. And God is the judge, and it's really up to me to kind of be here for you. I could see how your YouTube channel was kind of going down in views, and I could see how you were struggling, and I was trying to be there for you as much as I could, and I believe that
Thank
that's
you.
the way we should be as men, and that's how we should be as Christians, right? And I
Right.
was kind of seeing the total opposite out there.
Oh yeah, I mean, if people are
from
lying
other
too, you got to
people.
call that out. But when you've just called somebody a liar without much evidence, or that's what you think, or whatever, just be wary. Like you said, that's why you don't do that. That's why I don't do that. Is because you've really done, and then you have to kind of stick to that belief because otherwise, then you're the liar. You're the one who was, calling somebody that somebody shouldn't have. So it's been tough to see, and I think it's hard for me to see because, my family's all Christian and my wife's family's Christian, and to see people that have. Um, call themselves Christians. I don't know if you've seen some stuff like on Facebook or something. If you just go look at my posts and then look at the comments, I mean, it's not a good showing for Christianity at all. It's showing these people to be evil, really, patently evil. The things that would be said, like, Ozzy Osbourne died, and the next day I'm on Facebook and I'm just watching all these Christian channels. Just now he's a man. I mean, he's a woman. He was born a woman, and and they would just absolutely rip into people. And it's like, man, I don't know if Christians think like they're going to get to heaven and God's going to be giving them high fives for acting like that or for calling women men. None of those things seem to me at all to be what God would want from people. You don't know that so and so's a man. You don't have any idea. You're just saying well, because they look like a man or something. It's just weird to me to see people that otherwise call themselves Christians, which if you're a Christian, that means follower of Christ, follower of the way of Christ. And therefore, God says, I mean, Christ says to love your enemy, to turn the other cheek. And so I don't see that anywhere. So there is, in my mind, other than with you and a couple other people, and I've brought them up before, I don't see anybody acting Christian at all. In fact, what they consider to be Christian is the opposite of that. It's like all making fun of Erica Kirk, making fun of her response to Charlie dying, calling Charlie a fake, saying that he faked his death, those kind of things. Again, how could that be Christian of you? Somebody just was murdered in front of the whole world, and instead of waiting to see how the evidence turns out, or you've just jumped on this train of oh, it's all fake. He's fake. He was never a Christian. She's never a Christian. They're all, and then it just becomes this disgusting mess. And at the top of that disgusting mess is Christians, which is crazy to me. Is like you would expect there to be some type of other kind of person doing that kind of pushing that kind of narrative, but instead it's the Christians who feel like they're in the right for calling another man who is pretty godly in my opinion. I don't know how you feel about Charlie Kirk, but as far as somebody who's Christian who espouses the Christian ideas, who does truly seem to live like Christ, and then you watch what happened after, and it's just been disgusting. So for me, that's the way I see it, at least. I
Yeah.
don't know how you've seen
Yeah,
it.
it's been yeah, it was hard to watch how people were kind of being about your guys' trip, like that
Yeah.
are Christian. People that are non-Christian, I mean, they could obviously they know not what they do is what Jesus would say,
Right.
But yeah, so let's talk about Jesus. So
Sure.
let's say he had so the woman that committed adultery, they found her in an act of adultery. She comes, she's on the well, and they basically bring her to him and said, "Hey, what are you gonna do?"
Right.
And obviously, Jesus didn't say she's a liar, she's disgusting, and we need to stone her immediately. What he
Right.
did is basically said, whoever has not sinned, then cast the first stone, right? So, and obviously, those people started feeling convicted, like, oh, well, we've done that before as well.
Right.
Maybe not adultery, but we have thought about other women, so we are bad as well. So they basically took a
Right.
step back, and that's the way Jesus kind of treated it. And like you said, there was just what I saw is I saw flat Earth becoming like an idol to some people, like an idol, right? Instead of
Right.
worshiping the creator, they're worshiping the created.
Right.
And I did see that. And it became to the point where it just got nasty, and I didn't like it. I took a step back from the flat earth community. I was just like, you know what? I just want to do biblical cosmology like I've been doing, and I'll stick with that.
Right.
And any show that I've ever been on, I've never claimed like, hey, just straight flat earth. What I say is I'll do biblical cosmology, and that's what I want you to title it as well. Not flat earth, but
Right.
biblical cosmology, because I'll go over what the Bible says, and this is exactly what I teach because I believe the Bible is saying this. Now,
Right.
whether it is a ancient thought and that's the way they thought about it, or this is what the Bible is saying and this is what it is, which is what I believe now, obviously. But
Right.
either way, I'm going to teach what the Bible says, and there's no problem with that.
Right.
But
That's good. That's a great way to look at it.
it becomes a problem though when you go out there and you do things against the Bible, against what the Bible says, like slandering or things that like if you slander somebody, it's like kind of similar to murder, is what Jesus says. Slandering a man and doing things like that, like forgetting about the main meat and potatoes of the Bible to go after something else, and disrespect somebody, I think we got to make sure we take a step back and understand. If
Right.
you're not Christian though, and you're not believing in the Bible or anything, then that's something that you do. Then you can handle that with with whoever you uh
Right.
whoever you go to. I don't know what other people are believing nowadays, but that's one thing I wanted to just get out of the way. So, and people that are listening to this show right now, I know that there's probably Christians out there that are going to be listening to this show. There's, Flatsoid, which is one of my friends. Flat Earth Banjo, I don't know you. I've never met you, but you guys might be judging in your mind like, wow, why are you going to have Jared on the show? But but me, like I said, I'm not. I kind of pride myself on having different views on my show. I don't have just like strictly one show. I don't do flat Earth episodes every time, So I'm open to having Jaron on. First of all, because he's a friend and I've been cool with him this whole time. Second of all, just wanted he kind of hit me up like, hey, let me come on and kind of express what I found out, and I'm like, cool, let's do it. I think that we should. If we feel like he's not right and he's lying, then we should prove him wrong. Let's go
Right.
to at least to Punta Arenas. I know we're not gonna spend 25 grand going to Antarctica. At least go to Punta Arenas. Let's take some observations, kind of, see if it's matching what Jaron is saying, and that at least would be a start.
Yeah,
And
it'd
then
be a
from there,
start, but it would actually show you a lot because again, you're going to see the sun at midnight to your south, right? So again, you're at the tip of South America and you're going to see the sun in the south. Now, again, at midnight, you don't see the sun; it's going to be below the horizon, but you'll see the light of the sun moving left to right, moving right to left. And then when you realize that when it's over there is when it's above Australia's head. So all of a sudden now you have to rectify with how Australia is south of South America. On any flat Earth that you ever conceive, that will never be the case. You can't have uh, Australia south of South America. It's just not the way the world works. It's not. We know how the world's laid out. We know how the continents are laid out. But the sun is above the head. When you call people and say, "Hey, where's the sun?" and they say, "Oh, it's above my head in Australia." At that time, you're going to see it south of you in South America, and if you're in Antarctica, you'll see it south of you in the sky. So again, how could it be that I'm looking south, seeing the sun above the heads of people in Australia, unless you rectify with the fact of, oh, what if we're on a ball? Okay, if we're on a ball, on the other side of the ball is where Australia is, and the sun is clearly shining on it. It's above their heads. So I don't think you'll be able to work it out in any way, and that's why I think that God gave us very clear direction. Like at this point, you could drop me anywhere in the world blindfolded tomorrow, and by sunset, I'll know where I'm at just because now I understand the path of the sun. And how could that be the case if it wasn't for um, the fact of we living on a sphere? Because again, that's what tells me whether we're in the north or south is the direction of the sun moving. So it's almost like God gave us a very clear um, view. This is what you have to believe at this point. For me to believe in a flat earth, this is what I have to believe. I have to believe that God is the God of deception and that he purposely set up the world in a way that can be answered in one word, sphere. But really, it's not a sphere. It's a reflective firmament dome with a double-sided, mirror or a whatever Joseph Hamby comes up with, a two-sided mirror with a superfluid at the top of it. Like none of that makes any sense because the world can be answered by one word, sphere. So I don't believe in a deceptive God that set up the world that we would all be deceived in such a way. Now, many people would say it's biblical that God does say he set up a deception that even the elect would fall for. Um, but to me, it's like, well, I don't think of God as being a trickster like that. I believe that you would set up the world in a way that we could figure out and know where we at. So I don't think that there's any way you can answer some of those questions unless you're saying, well, why would God make the world that can be mapped out on a sphere correctly? Everything works as far as why you see the sun upside down or moon upside. Everything works on a sphere, and there's no other way to do that. So we can't make a flat map that accounts for all those things, or else then that would be more better than the sphere, right? So we would believe that. But there is nobody who's ever been able to do it. And even back in early 1900s, right, or even late 1800s, they were saying, Lady Blount and these other people, that, oh, it does appear that there is a 24-hour sun in the south, that the further you go, the longer the days get in the south. And then they just chalk it up and they say, but we're still Zetics, so we're going to remain flat earthers because water lies level. And that was their basic reasoning. So that's just 100 years ago. So in that time, the last 100 years, nobody's ever come up with anything else. Nobody's been able to depict the flat earth in any other way because we know the layout of the continents. So Christians can hate that all they want. Regardless, we know the layout of the continents and there's no way you can change them. For instance, Africa can't come after South America, right? Meaning we know that path of the sun, we know where the sun is at all times. We can figure out exactly who's underneath it at each time. So there's no way that it goes South America, then Africa. No, it goes South America, then it would go to Australia, then it would come back. So we know the order of the continents, we know the layout. And once you know that, there is no changing that. So that's why the AE map is the only map that could be right, is because the continents lay it out the same way. So we know that the order is correct. But there's a major problem, and that is that the sun actually goes to the left, not to the right. So again, picture the flat Earth map with the sun going around it, and the sun is always turning left to right, like clockwise. But if you're in the south, it's going the other direction. So how could that be possible? Now we have to figure out a flat Earth that has the sun going one way for some and the other way for others. And people have brought up, I don't know if you've seen the dual pole map.
I think I've seen your episode. Were you the one that did you pull that up on your episode
Yeah, I
before or
think
no?
so. I was showing people that some people say, well, couldn't we have two celestial poles in the sky on a flat Earth? And then that would require the sun almost doing like a figure eight, right? Like in the south, it would go that way, and then the north, but that wouldn't work either because our observations would be completely different. Meaning, for us in the north, remember how I told you how your sun sets left to right?
Yeah.
That's true no matter what season it is. So whether you're watching it in December, it's moving left to right, or whether you're watching it in June, it's moving left to right.
Yeah, I've
And
been I've been checking I've been looking at that. I've been kind of asking around to people too as well. I don't mean to
yeah,
interrupt you. Sorry about that.
no problem.
Yeah, I
No, I was
just
just pointing that out.
I've been asking people, what is it? But I don't think they're getting what I'm saying. I get what I'm saying because I watched your episodes, all the ones that you did,
Right.
and I'm
Thank you, buddy.
getting it. But other people are not getting that part. So I'm just trying to get through to them and say, hey, what is it?
Yeah.
How is it looking? How is it setting? Is it setting left or right? And then like,
It's
well,
bad for me because I
depends on
remember,
where I'm looking. I'm like, well, if you're looking, this
yeah, that's why I think
looking
the
at the
easiest thing is
sunset, which way is it
right. Which
going?
way is it going? Are you not looking the other direction?
Yeah.
No, I think it's difficult because as a flat earther, if I put myself back in those shoes, I think I would have treated it the same way. Like somebody would just be talking to me about the sun setting, and I would just because I'm so firm in my opinion that the Earth's flat, whatever they're saying must be wrong. So I almost like don't listen to them. I didn't hear them out, and maybe they just never said these things. But these things that I've been figuring out on my own after, it's like, man, if somebody would have said this, if somebody would have said that, like the lines of the degree of longitude is a huge problem for flat Earth. It's absolutely like it means the Earth's not flat. Um, so if people realize at the equator on the globe, everything starts getting smaller from that point south, right? Meaning it's going to come together for the South Pole at the bottom of the ball. Whereas on a flat Earth, everything at the equator from that point on gets larger and spread out. So that's a major difference. If you think about think about where you're at right now in the world and kind of look around in every direction and realize that what you believe as a flat earther is that the world expands in every direction. It just expands. Think about how big that would be. That okay, here's my little town. Now there's my state. Now there's my country. Now there's these other countries, but you're going in every direction away from you. That means the world is very huge. But at the same time, when you look at it from a globe perspective, as you get towards the south, the lines of longitude start coming back together. The Earth actually is getting smaller. Things are coming together. Well, first off, just as a one off, we can get to the South Pole from South America in about 5 hours, from South Africa in 6 hours, and from Australia in 7 hours. Okay. So if you just think about that, remember what I just said that the world goes out in every direction away from you. Now picture those three things are in opposite directions. One, South America, South Africa, and Australia. For you, they would have to be in vastly different positions. Well, they can all get to the same place, the South Pole, in a maximum of 6 or 7 hours. Well, that's just insane. That would be impossible. They must. So that's why I used to say the South was a lie. Like, there's no way that can be true and the Earth be flat. Well, it ends up being that that is true. So then the Earth's probably not flat. But if you think about this one, so I did it best at like 53 degrees south, which is about Punta Arenas where we were. If you do the math on that particular spot, and then you figure out how much is each degree of longitude, right? So what you could do is take that circumference of that area and then you just divide by 360 and then you get how much is per 1 degree. So at 53 degrees south, 1 degree of longitude, which means east-west, stretching, is 40 miles. Okay. Now that can be measured, meaning you can go down to South America, you can go to 53 degrees south, you could do it at 53 degrees north, same thing. And then measure what 1 degree is. So you could figure out where's this and where's this one, and then you measure between those and you're going to get 40 miles. Okay. On a flat Earth, now you have to remember that that's expanding. So it's not the same as the globe, which brings it together. The lines of longitude increase, they go outwards. They're like radial beams of light. So if you do the math on 53 degrees south, it comes out to 160 miles. So now what that means is that if you believe in the flat Earth, you have to believe that that distance down there at Punta Arenas, 160 miles, is actually what they call 40 miles. So I don't even know how I ever believed that that's even possible. What that means is that you'd get in a car to drive somewhere and it's 60 miles away. So you'd call your friend, say, I'll be there in an hour. But then you would get there 4 hours later. And you would be like, wait, this is weird. I'm only going 60 miles, but somehow it took me 4 hours. people would have figured these things out immediately. And this is why I think the mainstream world laughs at flat earthers, because some of our concepts are pretty crazy in the fact that we think that they are even possible to be the case. So as you go further south from 53 degrees south, it gets worse. I believe I did a chart on it the other day. I think it's 200 at 80 degrees south. So where we were in Union Glacier, it's God, I can't remember the exact number. I want to say it's 18 times. So I just said at 53 degrees, it's four times. So it means that the distances at 53 degrees south are four times wrong if the Earth is flat. At 80 degrees south, they're 18 times wrong, meaning that if you are measuring down at Antarctica a distance of 10 miles, it's actually 180 miles. So, I mean, that's insane. There's no way that there would be people dying every day because of that. People would get in a plane to fly across the Southern Ocean, and they would get 400 miles out, and they would be actually, like, for instance, if they're going 400 miles, they would actually need to travel 1,600 miles.
I
So,
think PhD Tony, I think you probably know who he is.
yeah,
He's the one that debates. I think that I believe he was pointing stuff like that out, like where it was like train tracks from here to here would be this certain amount. It was like in the South.
right.
I think I've seen that. I've watched every single debate, bro. Like literally, I watched all the debates already on
Yeah,
flat Earth, and I watched all of them. And I'm very. It's a very intriguing thing, man. Like it really sucks
it
you in
is.
when you start getting
Well,
into
I
it.
think it sucks you in because the idea of living on a globe is crazy.
Yeah, it is. I mean, to me,
I,
it
yeah,
is like it would be very hard for me to accept, and I have to
yeah,
find biblical proof, and I've done
that's tough. I don't think that there much is in anything like that. I mean, besides it saying the Earth is hung on nothing.
well, because
Besides
it's
that, I
hard
don't.
because it says, it also says that in Isaiah 40:22, where it says it is he who sitteth above the circle of the earth. It means that God is sitting above the circle of the earth, right?
Right.
Now that part everybody like concentrates on the circle, but God is sitting above the circle of the earth. So it would be him sitting above the sphere and moving at 66,000 miles an hour. That doesn't make sense to me, But if
No, it
there's a
doesn't really.
firmament where God's throne is above the firmament, that totally makes sense, right? And
So
then
you do believe that there's a God that's sitting above us right now, like sitting in
well,
a chair or something?
no. What I'm saying is, I do believe that okay. What I believe right now, currently,
Mhm.
without because I think that there's the first heaven is where the moon, sun, and the stars are located. The second heaven is the firmament, which is Genesis 1:8. The third heaven is where God's throne is located, which is above the firmament, right?
Gotcha.
And there's water above the firmament, which is talked about in obviously in Genesis, and it's
Right.
also talked about in Psalms 151, where it says, "Praise ye the waters that be above the heavens." Right. So there's still water above the heavens according to the Bible. So I believe that the third heaven is where God's throne is located, or what you would call heaven. Right.
Okay.
That's what I believe currently. Now, do I believe that God? It says that he is sitting above the circle of the earth, so I believe that God is doing that. Now, I can't tell you the details of if
Right.
he's sitting on a throne, but it does say that it does say that on his right hand is going to be Jesus, so I believe he'd be sitting on the throne. But what happens is you start getting into people saying, well, basically getting into the debate of the technicalities. I don't know
Right.
what that is, obviously, right? But if the Bible says it like it says in Isaiah 40:22, then I do believe that he is sitting that God's throne is above the and also in Ezekiel 126, it also talks about him. It's a vision, obviously, but it's a vision from God. It talks about him looking through the firmament and he sees a throne, and it says like a man sitting upon it, right? The likeness of a man sitting upon it. Not saying that it is a man. He's talking about seeing God on the throne, right? So,
Gotcha.
with verses like that, it's kind of hard for me to conceive um, the heliocentric model, first of all. Second of all, a globe. It's hard for me to fit that in. Also, the fact that it says that the earth is fixed and immovable,
Yeah.
that it cannot be moved. There's about six verses that I could probably, and as you break those down, there's probably about three of those that you can kind of hard of the earth not moving. So I don't believe the earth is moving biblically, right? I'm not saying that. I don't know what it is 100%, but I do believe that it's fixed and immovable. I believe that there is a firmament. You really can't get away from that. Now, whether the firmament is solid, whether it is plasma, whether all these different theories out there, I don't know. I think the word rakia though means that it is solid. So there has to be a firmament, and then there's a lot of things biblically that I think it would be hard for me to
Yeah.
conceive at this moment. But I'm definitely doing my best. I'm trying to I'm just doing my best to study and try to find the truth,
Yeah, it's
obviously.
hard. I guess for me, it's difficult because
Mm.
I think that if you do use the Bible as your truth, then yeah, I don't really know how somebody could be convinced that it's a globe otherwise. I mean, in that concept that the Bible is what is the Word of God,
Yeah.
then I think it becomes very difficult. For me, it's just something that I've never. Well, I did. I mean, I grew up Christian and everything, but I'm saying that at a certain point, I got to the point where I just said, even the Bible says, "Let God be true and every man be a liar." And if that's
Romans
the
3,
case,
4. Yeah. Like God be true, every man a liar. Yeah.
right. So if that's the case, though, then God left his book with man. So man has been in charge of it from day one. And we can believe that God has protected it, but I think there's things in there that tell me that possibly he hasn't protected that word because men are in control of it. So we know that men can write whatever they want. In fact, I could write a Bible tonight and I could get it published within a week, right? I could just change a bunch of, as long as I change more than 10% of it, there could be the Jeran edition of the Bible in a week. So that tells me that man can change the word of God, that there's nothing that's going to stop me from doing that. Now, you might say, well, God will strike you dead for doing that or whatever. Okay, well, still the book would come out and it would be a edition that's out there. So to me, that just is worrisome because there's things in the Bible that I don't think God ever said. In fact, I would bet my life on it that God didn't say certain things because it just isn't what a creator God would say. Yet the Bible says that. So for me, I was able just to dismiss some of it. Now, again, I believe that it is an ancient text that's very important and has a lot of truth in there. But I just try and take it for the good that's in there and leave some of the bad that I don't think can be explained. Now, again, I understand that Christians will explain it away through some sort of interpretation of it or whatever. But it does tell you
I'll,
in the
I'll tell
Bible.
you. I'll
Yeah.
tell you, Jaron.
Yes.
I'm literally going through the Bible, right? I'm going from Genesis to Revelation, right? So, and there's moments as the viewers know, the ones that are listening. I have two different shows I'm doing. I'm releasing it on my channel and also on Cult of Conspiracies channel. And I do run into verses, obviously, sometimes where I'm like baffled and it's hard for me to explain and it kind of knocks me off my feet. It's very, very tough. So I do
Right.
run into that. I'm not gonna lie and say like, hey, everything that I see in the Old Testament, sometimes it makes me kind of have to like take a step back, and that's why I have to do deep studies before I talk because I don't do editing or anything like that. I just do the show two
Right.
hours and I just go and obviously and even the audience sees when I run into certain verses where I'm kind of a little bit baffled, and it happens, especially because I've gone through Leviticus, I've gone through Deuteronomy, I've gone through Exodus, I've gone through all these some of the stuff that's kind of hard to teach because
Yeah.
of certain things. It's so foreign to us. But yeah, there is some things in the Bible, obviously, that make you kind of that make you have to do deep studies and understand. And I understand the things that you're talking about. Like I think you brought up the if a man rapes a
Yeah,
woman,
but I would
pay
say I could
$50,
actually
whatever.
forgive
But
a lot of the Old Testament, or I could understand there being a difference between that.
yeah,
But I mean, there's things even in the New Testament that God tells slaves
Romans. Oh no, I'm sorry,
to
Romans
be.
13.
I think this is in Judges. No, I can't remember. Hold on. But God says to slaves to be to treat their slave owners as if they're Jesus Christ. So it
What?
says. So let me get the verse for you. But he's saying
Yeah,
basically,
yeah.
it's
Just chapter and verse. It's hard
I'm trying to
because
think
you're
of it off
just
the top of
coming
my
off
head.
the top of your head. Yeah.
Yeah. So it says, treat your masters as if they're Jesus Christ, and then no matter how bad they are to you, be good to them. It just sounds completely like a uh, hold on. It sounds like something that slave owners would write, right? So the same thing I feel about Romans 13, which is when they
Yeah.
say all government is placed there by God, is so all these people that we have a problem with, Hitler or Mao Zedong or Mussolini or George Bush Sr., whatever, whoever it is, we then have to believe that God placed there, and it says for our good. It says that to go against God is to go against, I'm sorry, to go against government is to go against God. So what that means is if you're a Christian and you didn't get a vaccine, you went against God. That's what your Bible says. Not that's nothing else besides what the Bible says is that the government is placed there for your good. And if you want to be considered good in the eyes, then you have to do what they say. Basically, it says, must be, what do they call it? Must be subject to them. But we know that those people are evil. We know that they're doing things that are not godly. And therefore, so to me, God would never say all government is placed there by God. To go against government is to go against God. God would say, all government is placed there by me, and if they start acting a fool, then you would be in your best interest to not follow what they say. But that's not what the Bible says. The Bible basically makes it sound like the government is an extension of God. Um, so let me
So
see real
it's
quick.
yeah, it's the one that you're talking about, Romans 13:1,
Yeah,
not the slave one, but the other one.
yeah, go.
Yeah.
That one's Romans 13:1, right? And
Yeah.
actually, that whole verse there, that whole chapter, is a little bit questionable to me. It says, give honor to who honors due, give glory to who glories due, pay taxes to who taxes are due. I mean, that is the funniest line in the Bible I've ever seen. Pay taxes to who taxes are due. So what if tomorrow uh, Trump says, "Oh, you know what? I need to start a 99% income tax. So whatever money you make, 99% of it goes to the government." The Bible doesn't say pay taxes to who taxes are due unless they're crazy. It says pay taxes to who taxes are due. So that means that the government could literally change the tax to whatever they want to tomorrow. And as a Christian, you would have no choice but to pay tax to who taxes due. That's what the Bible says. It doesn't say anything about whether it's for right reasons or what if the government is using shady black markets or black budgets and they're starting to steal money from people. The Bible doesn't say anything like that. It's actually written as if the government wrote it because the government would tell people pay taxes to who taxes are due, and you'd be like, oh, we got to pay taxes. So it's to me, there's things like that that just tell me that it's been changed enough that I'm like, okay, so if anybody was able to get in there and put what they wanted in there, which are what I think happened, then I think that from there the whole thing kind of becomes, well, I'm not going to follow this as my religion because I think men have had their hands in it. Meaning, again, and we know that this is what happened when scribes went and they transfer, let's say we had the old manuscripts and they're making new ones. As they're transferring the words, just a picture that there's a king walking behind them who says, "Did you write honor the king in there?" No, okay, I'll write honor the king. You could change the Bible by just telling the scribes, "Hey, write this in there, or I'll kill you." Well, the scribes are going to write that in there. They're not going to just say, "Oh no, kill me right now." So again, it's like, and the scribes themselves, um, are translating. It's translating words into one language into another, and we already know that there's words in like German that we can't even translate in English. So I know that that's true in Hebrew, right? There's words that are kind of iffy. That well, did they mean this type of the word? This word's used this way this time, kind of like But there's also clear ones like rakia or what do they call a ball in when they say
Um.
I forgot what
Uh.
Isaiah.
Yeah. It's Isaiah 40:22. Yeah. It's
Okay, yeah,
Oh, they call it a ball in Isaiah. I think it's
shoot,
20
right, or something.
22:18. Yeah, 22:18 is where it says ball, and then
Oh,
it
okay,
says circle in Isaiah
so
40:22.
clearly didn't mean ball, right?
Yeah,
Because there's another word for it. Gotcha.
yeah. In Isaiah, the same author it says ball. Where he says, "I will
Right.
toss thee like a ball." Yeah.
As far as the other one, I wanted to see where that one was, and now I can't find it. So you didn't know what chapter I'm talking about? Oh, wait,
I
Ephesians.
I'm
Ephesians.
familiar with what you're saying. I don't know. I don't think it says to treat it like Jesus. I think it maybe says something different. I don't think it says. Does it say like treat it like Christ or
Yeah, let me find that one.
okay?
Yeah, so this says here, Ephesians 6, 5 through 9 says, Slaves, obey your earthly masters with respect and fear and with sincerity of heart, just as you would obey Christ. So to me, that is the only person that would ever write that would be slave owners, right? God would not tell you to treat your slave owners
Bondservants be
the
obedient to
same as you
those.
treat his son God or his.
So now, obviously, slaves to us are different. Like slaves to us are like we go to Africa,
Right.
we get slaves, and we bring them over here. They don't want to be with us, so we're just taking them. And then even some of the slaves, obviously in the book, but we'd have to you have to look at the context of what slaves were
Well, wait,
like.
let's say that they are
Let's say they owe you. Let's say it's like this, Jaron. Like, let's say if I have somebody that owes me money. Let's say you owe me $5,000, right? And I'm like,
okay.
I lend you the money, and you're like, okay. And then,
I don't
a
pay you
year
back and you're
goes
gonna
by. You don't put, yeah. So that's kind of a way that somebody would explain that probably and say, hey, well, that person is working it off. And then what happens is
right, but would
sometimes,
I ever treat you like Christ?
what's that?
So if you hire me or I have to work for
let's
you now because
let's say you're
I owed
working
you
it off.
money.
Okay, so it says, "Bond servants, be obedient to those who are your masters according to the flesh, with fear and trembling and sincerity of heart, as to Christ, not with eye service as men pleasers, but as bond servants of Christ." So bond servants, be obedient to those who are your masters. That's what you're talking about, right? Is
You're
that the
reading
verse?
Ephesians?
Yeah. Is it Ephesians 6:5 or is it further
Yeah,
down?
6:5. I just like totally different wording, but I don't know which version you're.
I'm reading it
Which
in
one? I'll
the
just
King James, the New King James. Sorry.
okay. New
Which
King James.
yeah, so
Go ahead.
it says bond servants be obedient to those who are your masters according to the flesh, with fear and trembling and sincerity of heart as to Christ, not with eye service as men pleasers, but as bondservants of Christ, doing the will of God from the heart, with goodwill doing service as to the Lord and not to men, knowing that whatever good anyone does, he will receive the same as the Lord, whoever is a slave or free, whether he is slave or free. So yeah, I
Okay.
think that's kind of it's kind of this the way we look at it right now, which obviously I work for a company, right? I am a bond servant and I'm a slave to the company that I work for, and I'm a slave to mortgage, I'm a slave to car payments, I'm a slave to everything right now. Even though I'm not called a slave, that's what I am. I'm a slave to the company I work for, right? So as I'm working, I need to be obedient to my bosses. That would be my masters, according to the flesh, with fear and trembling and sincerity of heart, as to Christ. So that just means that I need to be acting. I need to be treating them properly. If I'm working for a company, I need to be treating them properly and with sincerity. It says with fear and trembling. It says according to the flesh, and then it says but as bondservants of Christ, doing the will of God from the heart. So like
Okay, so
whatever
what
you
if, let's say though, let's say tomorrow you found out that your company is embezzling money, that they're screwing over customers, that they are doing things completely wrong, right? Well, in that case, you are still to do what the Bible says. So you're not even, you can't even like question them. You can't even say, because they are your earthly masters, therefore you have to treat them like Christ. You're not allowed to
well,
question Christ, so you can't question your,
it
that's what's
says
basically saying.
it says not with eye service as men pleasers. So it's obviously you're not doing it to please men, you're doing it to please God. But obviously if you found out they're embezzling, you have the right to since they're going doing something against God. It doesn't say whatever your bondservant does or whatever your owner does, make sure no matter what, you know, because it's obviously the context. It's the context of it, right? So we'd have to see, like, even if
Yeah.
you look up bond servants, I mean, would that be slaves and find out like what's the context of what a slave is? Because a slave to us is different. We have a total different perception of what a slave is than compared to what the Bible would be, right?
Well, I mean, but we know that the Bible said, go take over these towns and keep the people as your slaves.
Yeah,
So,
which is going to be in the Old Testament as well, right?
okay.
Yeah, yeah, it does say that.
So I don't know. So I mean, I'm just saying that we do understand that what slaves mean is that you work for somebody, whether, we believe as slaves is to be, you don't have the ability to leave.
Yeah,
That would be, I guess, the difference between a slave and an employee is that you can leave your job if you want, whereas a slave cannot. So,
yeah.
if it's talking about employees, I still would have a problem with it because it's still saying to treat your, and I thought, I'm trying to think if there's another New Testament verse. It's not, I don't know if it's in Peter,
Something
I'll
about
find it.
slaves. Something
Yeah,
about
well,
slaves
it's
or
kind of,
something.
yeah, it even says more, regardless of how they act towards you. Um, so like one of the ways that that's why the whole idea of the all government is placed there by God is a problem because what if the government starts being tyrannical?
Oh,
So
so
to
just
me,
let me see something.
but
I'm sorry.
no, no problem.
Servants. Okay, so a slave, bondman, men of servile condition, a slave, one who gives himself up to another's will, those who in service is used by Christ, extending the advancing, devoted to another to the disregard of his own interest, a servant, an attendant. So that word is used in the King James as just a servant, right? So it says
Okay.
a slave, a bondman, a man of servile condition. It says one who gives himself up to another's will or those service is used by Christ as extended, advanced, devoting to another, disregard to one's interest, a servant or attendant is what that is. So, like I said, we'd have to see
Yeah, so it
because
could be an employee really. It could be a indentured servant or somebody
yeah,
who's
because these people are Christians. Because what happens is some of these people that are coming to church back then, that Paul's talking to, he's writing to the Ephesians, right? So,
right,
what we do sometimes is we forget that Paul is writing to the Ephesians, and then Book of Romans, he's writing to the Romans, and then the Corinthians, he's writing to the Corinthian church. So
right.
it's not written to us; it's written for us. And the same thing with the book of Romans, he's writing to the Romans. What are they going through at that time? They're going through a lot. Like if they didn't obey the government, then they're going to get killed. How are they
Yeah,
going to
but
get put in jail, right? So it is. I understand. It is
yeah, it's tough
for
because
us.
Jesus went against the government. That was what
He
Jesus
did.
did. So
Yeah.
again, so the
He went
Bible to say
against.
all
He went
government is
against
placed by
the.
God.
Yeah, he went against the. But if you notice the way he was speaking to them when they did have him captured, he wasn't like just totally being like he was the way he talked to them was still respectful and
True.
he still
So,
um
so my problem is just, real quick. So my opinion is the reason it's written that way is because that's how they want people to act. So they want you to be indentured to government. They want you to be, if the government comes after you, they want you to take up your cross and let the government hang you. That's what they want. So again, I understand the Christian perspective is the opposite of that. But to me, I look at it and I say, well, does the meek inherit the earth? It doesn't look like it to me. It doesn't seem like that is the case. In fact, it seems like something you would say if you want people to remain meek so that you can rule over them. You would tell them, hey, when you die, the meek, the ones who are weak and just kind of let government roll over them, they'll be the ones who inherit the earth. So it seems like all of our promises are after we die. So there is, again, and people can believe that. I'm not going against people's, if your religious belief is that the meek will inherit the earth and so you act meek, that's fine. But I'm just saying there would be signs. To me, it just looks like everything that's set up in that book has been the reason why, like it says you can't get into heaven if you're rich, right? It's harder for a rich man to get to heaven than it is
It's
for a camel to get to the eye of a needle.
well,
So, okay.
well, think about that though, Jaron. Think about what kind of floodgate opens up when you become rich. I
Right,
mean, let's say you drive let's say you're married, right?
right,
First of all, and obviously in the Bible says not to commit adultery, right?
correct,
And you're driving in a Lamborghini and you go just to get gas. There's going to
right,
be females that are throwing themselves at you that are
right.
beautiful. So it opens up a floodgate, Jaron, of sin that is it's a lot different than like someone like me that goes in my Honda Pilot and I go fill up
Right.
gas.
You don't
Nobody's
get all
looking
the
at
girls
me.
jumping on your car when you're at the
You
gas
understand
station.
what I mean? So
Yeah.
it opens up a literal
No, and I get
floodgate.
that. I get that line. But then what I see is that if you think about it, so like my parents who grew up Christian and my grandparents, so they didn't leave any family money. There's no money for me. There's no money for, right? So, and I think most Christian families would say the same thing, that most Christian families don't get given money from their ancestors is because those people believed in what the Bible said, that they didn't believe in generational wealth. They actually got, Jesus says, don't store up things here on earth. Your gifts will be in heaven. But the problem I see is now we've got a world being run by the elite who they actually think the opposite of that. So they actually go around taking as much money as they can. And so then I start thinking, well, wait a second, isn't the world a direct result of what the Bible says? Meaning that you've got a bunch of people who are the good people who don't do anything wrong, who are good to each other, who give back to homelessness, who give back to people in need, who maybe work at a food kitchen on. So those are the Christians. Those are the good people in the world. But the problem is that we kind of see where they're going. They don't have any generational wealth. They're constantly enslaved. They're constantly afflicted. And then the elite, the powerful, just mow through everything. They're just going through
Yeah.
life and they just have everything. And it's because to me, it's like, well, wait, let's just pretend that the Bible was set up in a way that this is the result. What it would do is it would allow people who are evil to get away with what they want. Because number one, the Bible says, let evil be evil, let wicked be wicked. God will take care of them. So then we just kind of let those evil people run and we let them get richer and richer and take our money. And it just seems like to me like this is a perfect setup. And then they say things like, I'm just looking at, oh wait, this is what is this Romans 13, right? So I looked it up in the King James, and it talks about it says everyone must be subject to the governing authorities. It says, for there is no authority except that which is from God. Period. That is a false statement. There there is no authority but what is from God. Well, what does he mean by that? Like that means that police officers are the authority, right? Government is the authority. So we're now to believe that there is no authority except that which is from God. So does that mean that do we buck the authority now and say, well, I'm not ever listening to a police officer because they're not no, they are the authority figure because they can put you in jail. So they are
Yeah,
the
it's
authority. You can't put them in jail. So then it's telling you in Romans that all authority is placed there by God. It says the authorities that exist have been appointed by God. What? That is a false statement. I would never believe that that is written by God. God would not tell me that the authorities that exist, because there's authorities that exist in this world, have been appointed by God. Let's say that that's true. It says, consequently, whoever resists authority is opposing what God has set in place, and those who do so will bring judgment on themselves. So again, it's telling you that if the government tells you to take a vaccine, you better take a vaccine because it says the authorities that exist have been appointed by God. Consequently, whoever resists authority is opposing what God has set in place. So that would tell you that you were supposed to take the vaccine because God put those people in place for your good. And by going against them, you brought judgment on yourself. And it says, for rulers are not a terror to good conduct, but to bad. That's not true. It says, do you want to be unafraid of the one in authority? Do what is right, and you will have his approval. For he is God's servant for your good. But if you do wrong, be afraid, for he does not carry the sword in vain. He is God's servant, an agent of retribution to the wrongdoer. That's a great story, but it's not how life works. So that seems like somebody who wrote something that wants you to believe a certain way, but it's not the way life works. We know that government is not placed there by God. I mean, so we have to then believe Hitler was placed there by God, and so was Mussolini and all these guys who murdered millions, Mao Zedong. So they were placed there by God. So then the people who went against them, the people who went against their government, they're in the wrong. No, I mean, if your government's tyrannical, you have every right to go against and overthrow them, in my opinion. So anyway, there's
Yeah.
just little lines like that that got me to the point where I said, okay, so it's been changed. Let's say that they just put those lines in there, like, hey, put in there that the government's placed there by God. To go against God is to go against government. So as soon as those things are inserted in there, to me, as a person who reads that and says, I don't think God can say this, then it's okay to question the rest of it. And I don't mean question it as in just say like dismiss it all. You don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, but you do then say, okay, if some of it can be changed, then how much of it has been changed? The only way I think you'd know that is by taking the good from it. When I hear Jesus's two commandments and love your neighbor and love God and love each other and the Beatitudes, the all those things, those are fantastic words to live by, and they really do feel like truth. So I feel like people should take those in. But when it tells you, slaves be good to your slave owners, that's where I'm like, well, unless they're not good to you, right? Because it's basically saying that if they're beating you, you don't have any right to say anything. They're your
Well,
slave owners. Treat them
it
right.
also talks about to treat your slaves like where
Right.
so it talks about not to treat your slaves like that.
True.
Also
But
the
but let me just say this real quick. If you're a slave owner, then that's what you would write in there, right? Because you're saying for the slaves to be good to you, and it's saying, yeah, and the slave owners be good to your. But then if you're not good to them, it doesn't say, well, because you're not good to them, they can be not good to you. So it's if you're looking at who would have wrote that, like let's say which group of people wrote that, slaves or slave owners? Well, clearly slave owners would write that. Slaves wouldn't write that because the slaves would look at that and say, wait a second, so I have to treat you good no matter how you treat me. And yeah, it says that you have to treat me good. But if you start treating me bad, I don't have an option to get out of that because you're still my slave owner. So whereas the slave owners would look at that and they would say, don't write that in there because it's telling us we have to be good to them. We don't want to be good to them. So to me, it's like clearly written by one side or the other. It can't be written from a mutual point of view. You would never write from the middle and say, okay, slave owners, you have to be good to your slaves. Slaves, you have to be good to your slave owners, because you would realize the problem there that one of them is allowed to get away from this situation, one of them is not. Right? A slave owner, if your slave is like beating you, you can just kill them. Whereas if your slave owner is beating you, no, you can't. You have to treat them like Jesus, basically what it said, like Christ. So
yeah.
anyway, there's just enough wrong in there that for me, or not wrong. I don't want to say that because I don't want to offend people.
Yeah,
I don't have
you
a
just have
problem
to
with
know
people's
that
religion.
you just have
Like,
to do a fully deep dive and like know the context of this stuff because some of it might be on the surface where
mhm.
you're reading it, you're like, this is insane.
Right.
But the Bible would say like in Romans 12, same author, right from Paul,
Yeah.
1 through 2, it says, I beseech you, therefore, brethren, by the mercies of God, that you present your bodies as a living sacrifice, wholly acceptable to God, which is reasonable service, and do not be conformed to this world. So that's kind of
Right.
uh, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind that you may prove that what is good and acceptable is perfect will of God, right? So now it's telling you not to conform to this world. The world would be the government. And sometimes governments are put in place as a judgment because people are not believing in God. Like there's, let's say, I mean, I could accept that happening, but also, like, what if all the Christians in the world said, I'm not going to accept any government, I'm going to go against the government, and then we
True.
all ended up in prison? How are we going to be able to spread the gospel? The whole thing for us to do is obviously to baptize them. It's like the Great Commission. We need to go out there and spread the gospel. All of us, if we're all in prison because we go against the government, and now we're all in jail, what good are we as Christians? We're not going to be able to spread the gospel message. Are you going to trust me if I'm a prisoner? People don't usually trust people that are in jail and prison, right? So there's
Right.
things to it, but you just got to dig a little deeper. I don't have like a
Okay.
I didn't know we were going to bring up these different subjects, but I think
Sorry,
a
I didn't
good
know
thing
you
would
were
be
going there.
it's all good. It's all good. We ended up
I think we
going.
talked about one time we were going to have a show where we talked about some of these things.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Which is no problem. I'm down
Yeah.
with this definitely. But yeah. So there's things that obviously we would follow with the government. There's laws like do not steal, do not murder. We like the fact that it would be complete chaos if there was no government in place, right? And if there was no certain laws like that they actually do get from the Bible. And also there's people that molest children. We want them put in prison, right?
Yep.
So there is definitely things that the government does has that we do agree with, but there's certain things that they do that are corrupt, obviously. But God gives people free will, and those people as men that are put in those positions, They obviously I don't agree with the government, so I'm definitely on your side with that. And I've seen the what they do, with the how corrupt they are, the pushing the jabs and all the different things that they did
Right.
with COVID. It was crazy and insane. And
Insane.
as a conspiracy theorist, obviously we're on the same page there. But
Yeah, I
um
mean, it's just, well, it's nuts anyway. Even the thought of, I mean, and again, like if they, I mean, they did it themselves. But I think it's hilarious that they tell us trust the science, and this is their big push. And then in the case of the vaccines, they told people you can't transmit if you get the vaccine. And then they later said you could. So it's
yeah,
like
I know.
you're like, well, trust the science, but don't. It's just such a cluster F, if you will.
Yeah. All right,
Um,
well, sweet, man.
there's
Well, we're
one thing I
getting
wanted to ask you about. Do you know about the difference in the Geneva Bible? Have you seen how they changed?
worldly governors in Ephesians
Yeah,
6 12. Yep. Yeah, I
yeah, it's
did.
crazy. Okay, I didn't know if you knew
Yeah,
that.
yeah. It says worldly governors right there. It's Ephesians 6:12, and that's written by Paul, the same author that wrote Romans. That's the
Right.
thing that we got to look at. We're like, okay. And
Right. Those
also,
two things are different, right? They can't be the same. He wouldn't have wrote both. You wouldn't
yeah,
think.
yeah, yeah. And so you see that our
Which
we
one is it?
wrestle.
It's Ephesians what?
It's
Do you
Ephesians
know?
6:12, and it's going to
Okay.
be the Geneva Bible. I'll read it. I'll read it to you right now. Let's see,
Yeah,
because
please.
I could pull it up. I have a
And I'll bring
Geneva
it.
Bible on my fridge, but I could just do it on my phone. It's a little easier.
And so I'm going to look it up on the King James just so I can see the difference while you're reading that.
Okay, Geneva Bible. It's going to be Ephesians 6, and it's going to be 12. It says, "For
Okay.
we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the worldly governors, the princes of darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness, which are in ye high places, which are in high places."
Hmm.
And in the King James, it would say heavenly places, which is talking about principalities that are in heavenly places. Which
Right.
I told you, the first heaven is where the moon, sun, and the stars are located. That's where I believe these evil rulers are. But it does say they're against the worldly governors.
Right.
Okay, in the Geneva Bible.
So doesn't
So
that, to me, it sounds like that is something that Paul did write. And then it sounds like Romans 13 has to be an addition because, again, you wouldn't say you wrestle against the worldly governors and then later say, oh, all government is placed there by God. To go
and
against them is to go against God.
he's connecting the principalities of evil with the worldly governors in that verse, right?
Right.
In Ephesians.
Absolutely.
So, and in the New King James, it's going to be similar to the King James. It says, "For we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of darkness of this age." So
Right.
instead of saying worldly governors, it says against powers.
Right.
So I think that is something that's very interesting against the spiritual hosts of wickedness in
Yeah.
heavenly places, right?
It
So
just it seems an awful suspicious omission of the word governor, right?
it's
Or
very
yeah,
interesting. So that's
very
something
strange.
that people should understand, and I think that's a very good point that you bring up.
Well, yeah,
And
and it's just that there's also the I know that in that word in the Geneva Bible, there's the use of the word tyrant, I guess, is used a bunch more times than King James. So that's why and it's funny to me that everyone seems like most Christians agree that King James is the end all be all. I don't know
oh,
why.
not most.
Oh, sorry.
There's that's more of like the there are some people that are King James only, and that's they believe. They believe that
Right.
is the but not all Christians. There's not a majority of Christians, but there are some that are like it'd be like Baptists. They have that King
Got you.
James only
Would you say
type
that
thing.
like a fundamentalist Christian would be for the most part that version or no?
Yeah, maybe. And I would what I do personally is I like the fact that there's other
There's multiple, right?
translations. That way I could kind of just look at all of them and like that, like we just did now. We went back to Geneva Bible, which was written before King James, and see, whoa, it says worldly governors. Let's go to the King James. Oh wow, it doesn't say that. So that's the kind of things that you look
Right.
at where it's very interesting, and it really is just a change of a word. And
Right. Well, it's like it's funny that they didn't have a what do you call it? I was gonna say pronunciation. They don't have uh I can't think of the word. So like apostrophes, commas, what are those called?
oh yeah, 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 yeah. I know what you mean. Like they didn't have those
I don't know why I
in
can't
the
think of the damn word.
yeah. Sorry, good. I'm blanking
Brain
too.
fart. Yeah.
It's
Anyway.
10:40 at night, guys. We're both
Yeah,
tired.
yeah. Anyway, punctuation. There you go.
There you
Jesus.
go. Punctuation. There you go.
Punctuation is yeah, so it's something they didn't have right when they wrote in Hebrew. So it's amazing how you can write words now in English that have completely changed meaning because of a comma. And the fact that there wasn't one also tells us that that's some things should be looked at multiple times and multiple times over. And
Yeah.
I don't think we want to take men's word into account. You really should be able to read it, but I do think it's okay. Like I love people that are telling me the truth about what their real opinion is. Like what I feel like is missing is that we should have people, and people now are afraid, right? So if you're a music person or you're in Hollywood, those people no longer feel comfortable speaking about their own feelings or beliefs. They just go by what they're told to say, right? So that's mostly what we get. People in charge of the news, people on the news, people in radio, basically are mouthpieces pushing a direction, pushing a narrative. And we don't get enough people anymore who just like you and I get on a show and just give our real opinions.
Yeah.
I think we need more of that.
I agree. And so we're kind of coming up close to the end of the show, but
Yes.
okay. So as of right now, what's your thoughts on NASA? Are you thinking that they are in the space station, low Earth orbit? Are they able to do that? Do you believe that they're still faking things? What's your thoughts on that?
I think everything needs to be looked at again. I have a lot of problems with NASA, personal problems, and just what I think should be the case that isn't the case. And so I guess rather than make judgments that I can't be sure of, I pushed for the future, meaning that if their story about the moon landing is true, let's just say it is, um, then this generation deserves the same thing. Because if you think about it, brought everybody together in the 1969s, and the whole world got together watching it on TV, and they all have this kind of joy together. Okay, so if that's the case, then there's no reason that I can see that you would not have gone back in 50 years. Um, because what you've done now is you've created this problem where people growing up in school now, it certainly are having a hard time believing it. Um, and so they always say, well, it's because we had a big push and it was, we needed to get there to beat the Russians or whatever. So then they need to do a big push like that again because they've got a bunch of people in the world that every day that goes by, less people are believing in that.
Yeah.
And it's because of the fact that you've stopped going. I mean, there's nothing else in life like that. It's literally the equivalent of you went and sailed across the ocean from Spain to the United States for the first time. And then after that, nobody went further than putting their foot in the waves even though somebody sailed all the way over to the United States, from that point on, just then people stopped going across the ocean and they barely put their feet inside because we've only gone 1/1000th of the distance. So
Yeah.
supposedly we went 249,000 miles in 1969 and 1970, 71. So then since then we only go 250 miles. So that's
Yeah.
one
Big
thousandth.
difference. Yeah.
Big difference. So again, there's not, if I told you, hey, me and you lift weights and I'm like, hey, I used to be able to bench 4,000 and you're like, what? And I'm like, yeah, but today I only bench four. You'd be like, what do you mean? Show me you bench eight. Show me you bench 12. No, I used to bench 1,000 or,
Yeah.
four, but now I only bench four. That's
I
or
got it on
4,000.
film, and I
Yeah.
got it on film. Okay, you
Right,
can
right,
see.
right, right. And yeah, just only have one copy of it and I lost that. And,
Yeah,
so again,
I
that's
lost
the
it. I
problem.
lost the technology to be able to lift 4,000. Now I can
Takes me
only
a
do
while to build it
four.
back. I got to get that strength
Yeah.
back somehow.
All right.
So
So we got
it's
that out
pretty
of the
good.
way. So you got
Yeah.
it out of the way. So what do you
Well,
believe about? Oh, I'm
let
sorry.
me
I'm
just
sorry.
finish that up. I just want
Oh
to
yeah,
finish.
go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, yeah.
Sorry.
So I just want to say that NASA has a bunch of things that they do that are wrong, in my opinion, like no 24 hours view of the Earth from space. Those are no brainers to me. That like if let's say the United States gave me their money, so I got the tax money from these United States citizens. The very first thing I would think of is, well, okay, how do I pay these people back? So NASA should be looking at the fact that they get $80 million a day, and it comes from us. And so they should look around and say, okay, the very first thing we want to do is take care of those people. What would they like? You want a view of your home from space? Okay, well, to show our great technologically advanced uh, situation or our technology, then let's put up a satellite that shows the Earth 24 hours a day from space. Okay, great. Now, when that's done and everybody's looking at the Earth and everybody has that understanding, then you can start to move forward from that rather than they feel like testing exoplanets some 75 million light years away or something. It's just ridiculous. It's like nobody will ever, even the conception of the idea. I think I've said this before, but to get to the closest star would take 28,000 years if you were flying faster than any humans ever flown. So go 100,000
25
miles an
trillion
hour.
miles away, the closest star. Yeah,
Right.
25 trillion miles away.
So
Yeah.
that would take you 28,000 years. And so it's just the thought of it is like we shouldn't be putting money towards that at all. Like nothing, because it's not even in the realm of possibilities. I think you figure out the amount of generations, and there would have to be 900 births of a child on the craft, meaning that child would have to give birth to another, to another, to another, 900 times until you got to that star system. So the fact that they put any money to that is a joke. And I think that you got to take care of people first. But NASA's a problem. NASA, they also take so when we spend money on NASA then goes and hires scientists and, engineers, whatever. When they develop things or, let's say they invent something or they get a patent, You would think then that that goes to open source and that anybody can use it because it's our money who bought it. No, what actually happens is NASA then sells it to the highest bidder. So a company comes along and says, okay, we'll pay you 50,000 or $50 million for that technology. Then they get it and then they charge us more for it. So we are actually funding the the products that we fund to be invented are then given to us and charged more money because then a company bought it and they get exclusive rights to it, even though we paid for the development. So the fact that that goes on is
Crazy.
it's just disgusting. It shows that we don't all care about advancement of society. This idea that they tell us like, well, we're trying to move the human race forward, and no, you're not. You would never take money from the human race, develop products, and then be able to charge those people more for the products that they invented. That you're not trying to help the human race. You're actually stunting our growth because we're actually paying for our own demise. We're actually paying for the fact that we're going to have to pay more for products that we developed because we paid for them. It doesn't make any sense. So the fact that anybody stands behind NASA is a joke. You can't stand behind NASA. Now, did they go to the moon? Do they have craft out there in space? Uh, I don't stand behind any of those things. I would never debate in pro of that. You're not
Yeah,
going to
yeah.
catch me debating NASA is in space. So
All right.
not going to happen.
Sweet. And then we have like 10 minutes left. So what do you believe about like creation? You know, like because I know you don't believe the Bible's creation. What's your thoughts on creation? Like, was it a big bang,
No,
evolution? What's your thoughts?
no. Yeah, for me, I still think that there's a creation event or some sort of a creation event. I think the fossil record shows us that there is no animals that came before other animals, meaning like there's no pre-giraffe, there's no
Yeah.
pre-hippo, there's no pre-alligator, that these animals just appear in the fossil record as if they were created.
Hmm.
Um, Kind of almost instantaneously, meaning that they're, if evolution was true, then we would have bones of a rhinoceros, and then you would have bones of the animal that was before a rhinoceros or the transitionary forms, and there doesn't seem to be that. And then we know that science has in the past, Piltdown Man, other examples like that, where they actually tried to construct the intermediate animals, right? They tried to make well, let's take this monkey skull and put it with this human body, and then people will think that we were in this transition phase.
Yeah.
But it just seems like most animals are just appear in the fossil record. So for me, there's no evolution. Now, do I believe in adaptation? Yes. I think that we all are adapting, and we do adapt to our localities. Um, so yeah, no. As far as the Big Bang or anything like that, now, you talked about earlier, do I think it could still be geocentric? And I do. I do think that it works. Everything works with the spinning Earth. And again, once I can rationalize the fact that you wouldn't feel it because it spins so slow, and then I rationalize the fact of why water wouldn't fly off of it because it is moving so slow. Um, and again, people might say, well, 1,000 miles is extremely fast. Well, yeah, we think that, but we all fly in a plane at 500 miles per hour. And nobody thinks that's really going fast. You don't feel like you're going fast. Like if you're in a car, if you went 500 miles per hour, you'd piss your pants, probably die. You wouldn't, yeah, a car can't even go that fast. There's no car. I think the fastest
Yeah.
car ever is like, well, maybe the fastest car is that fast. I don't know. Maybe it goes. I don't know how fast the fastest car is. I think I'm thinking of a boat. A fast boat is only like 200 miles per hour. But anyway, but we know that that kind of air mass moves. I used to think it was a problem when people used to describe an airplane. They would say like, I'd say, oh, but the atmosphere is just moving along with the Earth. Doesn't make any sense. And then they would describe an airplane, and I would think that that's completely different. But now I kind of understand where they're coming from and the fact that if you have an airplane and you're flying in it at 300 miles per hour, do we even notice if we're then going 600 miles per hour? You might notice the speed up, but I'm saying if you're going 300 or 600 in an airplane, it's identical. You can't tell that you're going any faster or slower. So the same thing would kind of be true of the Earth in that the air is with us and it's being weighed down from above. So that's why we have 14.7 pounds per square inch on us. So as far as your question, or I just wanted to point out that I do have a problem with a lot of the distances of space and the things that they say about space, even the sizes of planets and things like that. Um, do they work as far as the mathematics around it and everything? But I would not debate that they're true. So
Yeah.
again, you're not going to catch me on a debate saying Saturn is the size that they say and it is the distance that they say, because I don't know that that's the case. I do recognize that there's scaling invariance, meaning that you can change the scale of everything around us and it still looks the same, right? I've done a video about it where if the sun was half as far and half as big, then you could still have the same observation that we have. That's why the flat earthers from old times believed that the sun was 32 miles across and 3,000 miles high, because that does work out to the same observation from the Earth of
Hmm.
whether it's 93 million miles and 867,000 miles wide. It's called scaling invariance. Now you have to scale everything with it, meaning you can't just bring the sun that close and nothing else change because it would have. But you could readdress all the sizes of the planets, bring them closer. They could be smaller. Again, do I know for a fact that those things are the size they say? No, so I can't stand behind that.
Yeah.
Not yet.
Awesome. Good.
Again, and it's not that important to me really. Is that I guess I don't want to be lied to. So it is important in the fact that they're lying to me about planets and things like that. I'm not sure it's totally lying, except for the very people at the top that would know about it. Because again, it does work mathematically. So I can see why somebody who's an astrologer, or, somebody who's into astrophysics or whatever, they
Yeah.
would accept it because it works. It's
Yeah,
true.
so the 1,000 miles an hour for me, like maybe, maybe acceptable, but the 66,600 miles an hour orbiting the sun,
Tough one.
hard for me. And then also us chasing the sun at 550,000 miles an hour, tough one. The
Totally
distances
moving
of
at
the stars,
1.2. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, one, and then also expanding at 1.2 million miles an hour. That
Now
now
that I
biblically,
don't believe.
now
That I
think
believe
about
is
this, Jaron. Think about this, Jaron. Let's say we have a firmament, right, outside of the galaxies,
it's
and then we
big.
have it expanding at 1.3 million miles an hour, and God is
Yeah.
above the firmament or outside the firmament.
He's
Now
getting farther away
Jesus,
from us. That's what's
when
happening. It
Jesus,
does make sense.
yeah,
Yeah.
he's getting further and further, which what science is
Hello.
actually doing, bro.
Yeah. That's
So
it. Yeah, that's true.
and they're trying to get God further and further away from us, right? And then
True.
also Jesus, when he ascended to heaven, and how long would it take him to get there? I mean, he
Long
has to be
time.
moving faster than 1.2 million miles an hour, right?
He's still moving now.
So you see what I mean? So
Yeah,
all
no,
the
there's a lot of problems
movements,
with those.
the
Yeah.
movements for me are there's a lot of problems. Now, people that are not Christians and don't believe that they're gonna look at me like, oh, you're crazy, But you
Yeah.
gotta understand. I'm thinking from a biblical standpoint because I am Christian and I'm a biblical cosmologist. So I just kind of put everything I fit everything into that view.
Right.
But yeah, I think it says here that the fastest car was 308 miles an hour, and
Oh,
then
that's it.
it
Okay.
says
Yeah.
that
So I
there's a
was right.
jet-powered vehicle that was 763 miles an hour. Now,
Right.
one thing I saw when I was on the cruise ship, right? So we're moving on the water, right?
Yep.
And we're going probably, I don't know, what, 30 miles an hour or something.
Probably
And
20, but yeah.
yeah, whatever it is. And you see the pool is moving like crazy, even though we're going straight, right? The
Right.
pool is moving. And you're like, wow, this is nuts. So I
So the
would think
pool on the cruise was like there's big waves in it.
there was big waves in it, yeah, because we're on the water. Who knows? It's probably moving kind of because we're actually booking it. We're trying to
Right.
go from Puerto Vallarta all the way back to San Diego, right? So they're booking it, trying to make it there. So now when we originally went to these islands or whatever, that it's you're not going to have the pool doing that. But when they're going back to try to get to
Oh,
San
okay.
Diego, it's moving.
I was gonna
But
say I've been on a cruise before and I didn't remember seeing the pool water do that, but yeah, I see what
yeah,
you're
it
saying.
was doing that. Yeah. And so what I was gonna say is that's something like the movement of the water. Like when you see an earthquake or you see something happening, the water is gonna be moving a certain way. So if the earth is moving locally, you're gonna see the water doing something that it doesn't normally do. It doesn't normally just stay,
Yeah.
I
What
would
about
say
on an
flat.
airplane though? If you had a cup of water on an airplane, it would just be consistently, you wouldn't
But
see it
you'd
moving,
have
right?
to have containment though for that to be right. So you'd have to have a firmament for that to be true, right?
Well, you have to have containment, meaning that in an airplane, there's walls, so the air doesn't have anywhere to go. And I
Yeah.
would just say that from a globe perspective, it would be the same. That on the Earth, all the air is weighing down on you, and Earth is moving slowly, so the air is moving with it. I just don't know where you would
Yep.
have that kind
It's
of
it's
displacement.
moving slowly when it's doing the 1,000 miles an hour, but it's not moving slowly when it's going 66,600 miles an hour on the sun, though.
Well, again, so let's put ourselves in space. Let's say we went up in space right now, and we were able to get far enough, and we're able to see the whole solar system. You wouldn't
Uh,
even see the Earth moving. It'd be because again, it's all a size thing. So for us, we're very tiny and we think of speeds in terms of 66,000 miles per hour sounds extremely fast. But again, if you were able to move yourself outside of the solar system, look at the whole thing, it's not like planets are zooming around super fast around the sun.
yeah,
Remember, it takes us a year to get all the way around. So
yeah.
again, the problem with I have is I'm arguing that a point there that I don't know to be true. So I wouldn't argue that.
Yeah, yeah. We're just
I don't,
I'm
yeah,
just
we're just
I'm
spitballing.
just pointing out things that people are running into still like that are flat earthers. Obviously the
Right.
pressure without containment is one. That's just another proof, but that's not even a flat earth proof. That's just a firmament proof, I would say. So
Yeah, that's a tough one too from a globe standpoint. It just needs to be that the air has weight and it's weighing down on us, and then it gets thinner as it goes up. But
yeah.
again, yeah, I agree that it does seem like the atmosphere would escape out into space.
So do you believe so I know you don't believe do you believe like the Genesis story and that's how it was created? Do you believe that we're like maybe 6,600 years old and do you believe that at all or are you just totally against that?
Um, No, I mean, I don't know if the story is true itself. Like, I don't believe there's Adam and Eve and that, that whole thing. I mean, it must be something like that, but I don't think that, God put two people here and then put a tree here and told them not to touch the tree, and then they touched it, and then because of that, then everybody's has to live in sin. That to me seems a little bit not true. But I mean, as far as how old the earth is, I would think that whenever God created the earth, that he probably did create it. And if you like, let's say that you just were able to create a world right now. Well, yeah, then if the people in that world started to try and date it, they're going to come to some incorrect opinions because you just created it. But to them, if you just created a tree and it has some rings in it, you're going to go and you're going to say, oh, that tree's 25 years old, but I just created it. So it's not 25 years old.
Yeah.
So I think that we have instances like that. And we already know that that kind of happens. I've seen them date rocks that come out of like a volcano, and they'll come back out of the volcano. They're brand new. They're lava, and then they congeal into a rock, and then they date it, and it says 300 million years old.
Yeah.
Like, nope, that's 3 days old. So there's problems with our dating methods. I don't believe in the age of the Earth being billions of years. No. Although, could God have created it? And if you start dating it because you think you can figure that stuff out, could you come to some incorrect assumptions? Yeah, I think so. For instance, they do like this half-life, right? The radiocarbon dating and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Again, I don't have any connection to that. I think that dinosaurs are recent. I think that there's enough evidence of that that now they're finding all the soft tissue in dinosaur bones. So I know a lot of people in the truth movement don't believe in dinosaurs, but I do think that big animals lived, and we know that today, right? There's certain
Yeah.
animals like a kangaroo, other animals that never stop growing. So
Yeah.
if they didn't have any environmental issues or people hunting them or something, they would just continue to grow. So I don't have a problem with big animals, although they want to say that they're 67 million years old, the dinosaurs. I don't believe, that. So
Yeah. All right, awesome. Well, I think we're good, man. That was a good two
thanks.
hour show, and I really appreciate you, bro. Thank you for coming on, and
Yeah, as
and
always,
um,
appreciate you too. You've always been a good guy to me, and you've been there. And just so people know, I mean, like as a Christian, you act like I would hope Christians would, whereas a lot of others don't. Whereas, give me the benefit of the doubt. Ask questions if you're confused about something I say, and don't go around on your show just saying, Jaren's a liar, like other people who call themselves Christians and they're wrong because I haven't lied about the trip at all. And so it gives me a really bad taste. And so then I see these people, let's just say Keith, for example, that call themselves Christians and try to act very holy and they're Christian, but then I see them lying about me every day on their show, saying that I did something that I didn't do, or saying something I did do that I didn't. And then, yeah, they're just really not very honest to their audience. It doesn't seem like they're honest to me. And so that's a problem because I don't get a good taste in my mouth for the idea of Christianity when Flatzoid goes around claiming to be a Christian and it's credulity, Jesus saves or whatever his stupid channel name is. But it's like, yeah, but this person's on his show lying about me constantly. So is that really a Christian? Well, if it is, then we got problems because that's not how Jesus would act. And so, again, he would say something like, "Well, Jesus would call out the Pharisees, and he would call, yeah, but the difference was is that they were in the wrong, and Jesus called them out.
well,
Whereas I'm not
but the
doing,
difference is they were acting like they were holier than thou. The thing is, the Pharisees, what they were doing is they were trying to be holy on the outside, but they
right,
weren't being holy in the heart. And
right,
Jesus knew that, obviously, and God knew that. So God, He was pointing that out to them. But the
right,
people that were confused, that weren't saved or were not, the Jesus was not treating them like that. How am I gonna, if you've never, like, if you don't believe the Bible and you're not following the Bible, how am I gonna judge you? I shouldn't be able to. Only God can, right? What I'm supposed to do is, if I have somebody that's Christian and I know they believe the Bible and they say they're Christian, what I'm supposed to do is come with another witness, right? Me with another witness and go speak to that Christian, and that's how we're supposed to handle that. And we're supposed to handle it in a like manner. We're
right.
not supposed to go and judge somebody that's not Christian because they're not saved. So what, it's only God is the one that's supposed to make that judgment. That's why Matthew chapter 1, or Matthew 7 1, it says, judge not, that you be not judged, for with the judgment
Right.
that you judge you will be judged, and with that measure you use it'll be measured back to you.
That's
Meaning
scary for
that
some
that's the
people.
way that God is going to judge you.
Right,
So we're not meant to be, now we are meant to obviously not just be stupid. We're meant to, with other Christians, we're supposed to correct them, right? Because we're supposed to correct our brothers. But if they're not saved, then we're not supposed to be the judges of that, if that
mhm.
makes sense. And if
Yeah, it
you
makes
are
sense,
the
but
judge, if you are being the judge, then God is saying the way that you're judging them, that is going to be measured back to you. And
right,
that's why He says, why do you look at the speck in your brother's eye, but do not consider the plank in your own eye?
right,
Meaning, behind closed doors, you're doing things that you're judging them for doing, right? Like, and that's not good. That's the plank
No.
that's in your eye. Now, in front of people, you're saying, well, you're judging them, you're pointing fingers at them, but at the same time, God knows your heart that you were actually the one with the plank in your eye, trying to take the speck out of Jaren's eye, right? So you got to be careful with that.
Well, let me give
But
an example of that. So when right before, well, this is about 3 months before we went to Antarctica, maybe 6 months, that somebody came forward and said, "Hey, I have a problem with these emergency landings that are in Banjo's book because they showed us they're using a 2D representation of the Earth and saying, so for instance, people probably believe in the emergency landings. I now believe that all of those are false. They're all straw man arguments about the globe because the globe believes that the planes travel a great circle route. So, for instance, the Great Circle Route between, say, Los Angeles and Japan does go up by Alaska. So when people draw a line from Japan across the Pacific Ocean to LA and say, hey, this plane that was supposed to go here ended up diverting because of an emergency landing up here in Alaska. Well, the real path of the flight is by Alaska. That's the Great Circle Route. So it is you're straw manning the globe by saying drawing a line on a 2D globe straight across it. That's not what they believe. So anyway, somebody like that with Banjo, when that brought to our attention, Austin and I talked about it. We're like, man, let's have a meeting with Banjo. So we had a meeting with Banjo, and we said, hey Banjo, here's the problem with your book. This is why it's wrong. You've taken a 2D representation. Let us help you. Let us fix them. Let's find the ones that are really a problem. And he just said, no, I'm not changing the book. It's doing well. People like it. I'm like, yeah, but it's wrong. You've straw man the globe. So let's redo it. We'll help you. He's like, nope, I don't want any help. I don't want to redo it. The book's fine. So like Austin and I at that point were like, man, that's weird of Banjo to do that because it's clearly a straw man argument, meaning, you heard Austin debate, then you've heard him talk about straw man all the time. You can't build a belief and then destroy it when it's not the belief of the people that you're destroying. So if the globe doesn't believe that that's the path of the planes and you've written your entire book about these paths that don't work, well, that's not what the globe says. So it is a straw man. So anyway, then to see him doing the things that he's doing now, which is if you go look at his channel, every week he does a video about me and Austin, calls us names, puts us in little doll forms of, that we're Freemasonic or that we work for Duffy or whatever it is. But it's like for us, for me at least, who's a non-Christian, to see Christians act like that, it's just baffling to me because that is the last religion I would ever want to be. Is like, well, what is Banjo? He's Christian, and I don't want to be Christian because to act like that when he's wrong, and who else would know he's wrong besides me? I know he's wrong. So again, of course he's going to look at it and say, well, Jeran, of course, is a liar, so of course he's saying I'm wrong. Sad thing is, Banjo, that you're just dead wrong, and you just heard him say that you will be judged by the same hand that you're
measure.
judging me,
Yeah.
which is a
Yeah.
false one. So good luck getting into your paradise.
Yeah, I got to be careful. So so since we're ending it, like I always ask every guest, is there anything that you'd like to tell our audience before we leave that you thought was important that you kind of want to get out there before we end?
No, I just want people to really think about, the fact that it's okay to be wrong. It helps you be right. And so I feel like a lot of people are in a position where maybe they feel like they've pushed this flat earth real hard to their family or friends. And so they feel like they're like stuck in it. I would just say, to really contemplate what you're saying is the case, because I think too many of us, what do you want to call them, conspiracy theorists or truthers, they act like they do their own research and things like that. But really, going and watching YouTube videos or something else that another flat earther says is not really doing your own research. So I feel like we've gotten stuck in this idea of that. And then I kind of realized too that a lot of people just don't do that at all. So it's almost like by saying do your own research, you're telling people not to. It's in a weird way. Because really, you should be doing your own research. And if you're not, then you are just taking the word of a YouTuber who may have taken their word from somebody else, who may have taken their word from somebody else. And that's what I'm really noticing is now any of these claims of seeing too far that are like drastic. I mean, we see, yeah, you can see 10 miles when you're supposed to be 9, or you can see 12 when you're supposed to see 10, but you'll never see 50 when you're supposed to see 10. So why is that? Well, if you start looking at those things of why we do, if you hear a claim from a flat earther, just really look at it. Another thing we don't see is we don't see anybody destroying the false arguments, right? So you get a lot of these arguments. People who say like, "Oh, Nixon called the moon from a landline." It's just so dumb because it's of course not what happened. Nobody thinks that there's a landline on the moon. Nobody thinks that. But you can patch calls through to a radio, right? I mean, for instance, Nixon can call NASA, who has a phone, who then patches it through to them on radio. It's not it's not even difficult in 1969. But truthers go around acting like that's something that could never possibly happen, even though it happened all the time that we would patch calls in through radios. So that's all that they did is that NASA called, or the president called NASA, who patched that call through to the moon. Now, again, I'm not saying that that means it's true, but I'm saying is we have a lot of people who make arguments uh, that just sound goofy. I'm trying to think of some other ones that is crazy the way they talk. I just heard some recently too. But again, like people who say that the moon has nothing to do with the tides or something like that. It's like you can go and look yourselves, look at the tide times. Why do you think the tide is 24 hours and 50 minutes? That's the tide changes every day by 50 minutes. Well, what else is 50 minutes behind every day? Well, it's the moon. So if it's high tide, the moon is in the same spot every time above your head every single time. So it's like the arguments that the truthers make at this point to me proves that they're not truthers. It proves that they just simply repeat, rinse and repeat what they've heard. Dave Weiss does this. Everybody, they just keep repeating the same things, and they're just not the case. So my final word would just be to people to really think about the things that you believe in before you just fully believe in them, because there's no problem in changing your beliefs. That should be something that happens all the time. You should always change your beliefs based on new information. We're in this position now where you have to be stuck in your beliefs. And then the truth community, the way they are, is like if you go against them in one thing, if you're somebody who's just going along and you're a truther and all of a sudden you say, no, I think Charlie Kirk died, people in the truth community will laugh at you because you have to believe it didn't happen. You have to believe. So the way that we've now been pushed into these factions, I believe it's the problem with YouTube. With YouTube, because of the chats and things like that, you are forced to go real hard in one direction or another. There is no glory in being in the middle, and that's really where I am. So that's a problem, is because you're not going to make money doing that. You're not going to make an audience, because no audience wants to hear somebody who's in the middle who says, I'm not really sure, right? They want to hear somebody say, I'm sure of this or I'm sure of that. So
Yep.
anyway, my suggestion to everybody is just to really look at things you believe. Go test the things that you think you believe. So if you believe that the earth is flat, then go watch the sun in the south, go to Punta Arenas, watch the stars. And then when you've seen all those things and you can rectify them, come back and tell me how you did, because I would love to join you. I just know that they can't be rectified at this point. So
Yeah, so there's a list of things that Jaron kind of went over to for us flat earthers that still believe in flat earth, to kind of try to see if you could rectify it on the flat earth, you know. And if you don't believe what he's saying about what he saw, then we should probably go and try to see it for ourselves. So I think Punta Arenas would be a good start. Is
sure.
there before we end, is there any experiment that you think 100% would prove that the earth is flat or the earth is a globe? Like, is there an experiment that you've ever thought about in these 10 years where you thought like, hey, if we could do that experiment and it would prove one way or another?
I mean, the 24-hour sun in the south is pretty good. I don't know if there's much else that I would say. Uh, no, I think that that's,
That's it.
because again, it has to, is it going to be convincing to everybody, or are you talking about if you go see it? That's the hard part, right? I mean, because anything that anybody can just deny happening is going to be an easy way out for them. And I understand the mind of myself when I was a flat earther and versus the ones I see. And what really flat earthers are doing is looking for anything that allows them to continue believing what they're believing. So they're not really looking for, because there is no, for example, with the flat earth right now, let's take flat earth right now. Do they have a map? No. Do they have a model? No. Do they have an answer for the upside down sun and moon and the backwards? No. So literally, flat earth has nothing, yet it has a bunch of believers. So, like, well, they have Bible. I guess you could give them that. But I'm saying it has no tangible scientific proofs anymore. Whereas I used to think it did. We used to have, there's no 24-hour sun in the south, and all the things that I chalked up to being reasons that the earth was flat. So at this point, I think people should really start wondering, and then, should you dive into a belief that has no evidence before it has the evidence that it needs? So for instance, people should have stayed globe earthers until there was the actual evidence that told us that it was flat. Instead, we became flat earthers because we rejected the globe, went to flat earth, but we then were there looking for evidence. We're there everywhere. Well, again, the way that the human mind works, and people admit this, is that when you have a preconceived belief and you go into an inquiry that way, you are usually going to find what you're looking for, which means that if you start believing the earth is flat and then you go looking for the evidence the earth's flat, you're going to find evidence the earth's flat. But are you going to find true evidence that you can actually go verify, or are you just going to find things people said? That's the problem. Mostly we find things people said, and we don't look at, I don't know about you, but did you used to believe, or you might still believe, that the Challenger accident was not as they told us, right? But one of the
Yeah,
problems with that.
that the
Yeah.
people are still alive, stuff like that, right?
Right, right, right. And again, so it's a crazy belief to think that NASA is so they're like, we're going to kill these astronauts, but we're not going to kill them, and we're going to put them under their
Same
normal.
name.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of crazy for us to believe. And so again,
Yeah.
it works out because there are these images of these people that look the same. But I found and have tried to show this to people, and I you should see the response of people. Like Judith Resnick is not the same as the astronaut Judith Resnick, because I found a 1987 C-SPAN video where she's presenting something on behalf of Yale to even Joe Biden's in the meeting, a couple other people, and clearly you're looking at this lady and it's 100% not the same as the astronaut that died the year before. The year before, the astronaut was like a good-looking brunette girl, um, and yeah, if you put her next to the old lady now, you could say, "Oh, that's her after." But
Yeah.
that's ridiculous to think about. You can't see that in people. Like when you see her a year after, you're like, "Oh, it's the." You can tell it's the younger version of the old lady. This is her younger version, not the astronaut. So it's like, and it's easily shown that, and the name is not even spelled the same. So there's like reasons that again, it's like one letter off. Again, would they put her? Oh, we're going to hide your identity by making it one letter off. It's just ridiculous to me. So things I used to formerly believe were like so true because I heard them from other people, and it just seems like the narrative fits. The more I look into it, I don't know if you've seen that video of the astronaut who's in the ISS and he drops the screw in the bathroom.
Yeah, yeah. And I heard you say that that's actually not true. That it
It's
that
fake.
that.
Yeah, it's a fake by some flat earther.
Hmm.
So we even have flat earthers out there faking evidence. So they're actually another thing I noticed, like the ISS crosses the sun and moon. It does that. You can actually go to transitfinder.com. You can look up when it's going to cross the sun and moon. You can go outside, film it, and you'll see it. I've done it twice. Now, why is it that no other flat earther has done that? Well, there's a reason. It's because they don't want to show you things that are globe evidence and not flat earth proof. So that's a problem. I mean, for me, people can call me whatever they want. I was always honest with people. If I went out and tried to film the 24-hour, I mean, film the ISS cross the sun and I filmed it, then I came and uploaded it to my channel because it's true. Now, I mean, what people think it's fake because they're like, well, how has no other flat earther posted it? Because they haven't gone out and tried, or they did and they saw it and didn't want to show you. I can't tell you that. I can tell you that I guarantee you can go out tomorrow and film it. Easy. So again, it's just a matter of whether people really are looking for the truth or whether they think they have the truth and they're just pretending to be a searcher of the truth. I don't know. For me, I really am looking for the truth. It's the only thing that really matters to me. And I've shown that. And again, if people don't want to agree with that or they think that I'm lying about it or I'm, because like you said, to call me a liar, to call me like I faked the Antarctica thing at all is basically saying I'm the worst human being alive. I'm
That's for
lying
real.
to the
Yeah.
human race. I'm lying to people that are God's people. I'm lying to my children. I'm lying to my wife. I'm lying to my family. It is disgusting that you would even put that on me. And it's just not the case. So again, I think we keep chalking it up to all these people that we think are lying. Everybody's lying to us. And again, is that really the case? Is Charlie Kirk alive somewhere with Kobe Bryant? No, I don't think so. I think that that's a former belief I might have had that would be, going against what I know to be true in the world. So I would just ask people to give me give me the benefit of the doubt. You don't have to hate somebody just because they have a different belief about the shape of the earth than you. You should be able to watch. Like I'll just say, if Dave Weiss came back from Antarctica and said the Earth was a globe, I'd be paying so much attention to him. I'd be watching everything he put out. I'd want to know exactly why he changed his belief like that. What people did to me is they just blocked me and gave up and didn't watch anymore. So again, that's how you stay in an echo chamber. That's how you stay in a wrong belief. Is if somebody brings back evidence that is against what you believe, then you need to look into that evidence. You need to go and double check it. You need to confirm it. You can't just say it's fake because it's the only thing that makes it easy for you because you're proving yourself to be lazy. That's what it is. I mean, rather than go do something, you're just like, oh, it's fake. Oh, yeah, that's easy. So really, I used to think flat earthers were better researchers than globe earthers. Now everything's flipped to me. Now I think that flat earthers are lazy. They don't do any research. They just believe what they hear on YouTube videos. So again, that's now you might say to me, well, the science believers do the same thing, and you're right, but the difference is they're right. So you can I can get on them about their method of getting there. However, they're right. So again, you can be lazy if you're right. You can't be lazy if you're wrong because it's a totally different thing. But no, I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, thank you, thank you,
Do it
thank
again.
you. And like I said, everybody that's listening, he gave you some things that you could focus on as flat earthers. We need to try to prove them wrong and find out a way that it can fit on the flat Earth. So
Right.
I think Witsit, he's as far as on talking about flat Earth. I know he does it on discourse and stuff like that. I haven't really heard him come back with anything yet. So I mean, Flat Earth is like 10 years old, as far as it coming back, in fruition. And I know people are still working on different things and different ideas. And at the moment, I'm still believing in biblical cosmology, obviously. And I'm just trying to work everything out, as best as I can. So thank
That's
you so
good.
much. Yeah, thank you guys for listening. And anybody that wants to hit me up, you can always DM me at Josh Monday underscore podcast on Instagram. If you have any questions about this episode or anything like that, hit me direct. Don't just go and make videos about me or anything like that. Just hit me direct. And that way I could talk to you about it. And if you're Christian, make sure you hit me direct for sure. All right. Thank you guys so much for listening. I appreciate you and God bless. All right. So I was going to end the show, but you know what? I always end it in prayer. But if somebody's not a believer, that doesn't believe the Bible, then I'm not going to put them in that position where they're going to have to, bow their head or not bow their head to pray. So, like we always do. And like I said, guys, listen. So Jaron hit me up on Telegram and said, "Hey, man, I would like to come on your show and talk to you and explain my what I saw and my beliefs." And I said, "You know what? No problem. I've been, like I said, I've been talking to Jaron. I've been cool with him. I'm not the type of person that's gonna have beef with people or be mad at people for what they believe." And I said, "No problem." So we kind of set the show up, and he came on. It's been almost a year since they came back from Antarctica. So I think that all the dust has settled, and thought I would bring him on and talk to him. And I thought it was an interesting conversation. And I have obviously on my show, I've had a lot of flat earthers on, right? I've had it definitely a lot, but I've also had, Gary Wayne. I've had Ryan Peterson. I've had a lot of people that do believe in the globe. And one thing I'm not going to do as a Christian, or I'm not going to not have people on because they believe a certain belief, about the globe, you know. Now, Jaron, specifically, obviously my show is it's Christian and conspiracy, right? So we were talking about the conspiracy stuff right now. Jaron is not a believer in the Bible yet, but I definitely pray for him, and I'm going to pray for him right now, actually, and his family. But I pray that people assist him and God assist him in getting closer to the true God. At this moment he does believe in a God, but I don't believe that he's believing in the God, right? So that's what we got to do. We got to pray for him right now. So let's do that. And that's what it says to do in the Bible. Pray for your enemies. He's not my enemy. He's not an enemy. He's a friend. But if he is an enemy to you, like the way that you're thinking as Christians that he's an enemy, what are you supposed to do? You're supposed to pray for him, right? So Jaron is a friend of mine, so I'm not going to say he's an enemy. But for those that think he is lying and all that stuff, then you're supposed to just pray for him. And let's do that now. So, Father God, in the name of Jesus, thank you so much for this glorious time. I really appreciate everything you do for us, Lord. And I would just want to pray for Jaron and his family. I know that right now he's going through hard times, difficult times, because he came back from Antarctica, and he believes in a globe now. And obviously he's not making as much money on YouTube, and he is he's struggling, Lord. So I just ask that you be there for him, and also be there for his son Maverick and his wife, and assist him, Lord, and help him to get closer to you. That's what the whole point of life is, to get close to you, and and for him to believe that Jesus is his Lord and Savior, and to believe that Jesus died on the cross for him, rose again after 3 days, as Corinthians, 1 Corinthians 15 verses 1 through 4 says, and I just want to ask that you open up his heart, and you assist him in getting closer to you, Lord. Obviously, I can't do that. All I could do is just plant the seed, and other people can plant the seed. And I just want to ask that you please, supernaturally, whatever you can do. I know we have free will, but assist him, Lord, and to believe in the Bible. But I just want to say, Lord, thank you so much. I know that the flat Earth and the globe is a divisive subject, and it's something that some people the flat earth is becoming an idol for people, Lord. And the biblical cosmology became an idol for me at one time, Lord. I would only teach that, and I would try to teach the Nephilim, and that's all I would do. But now you've opened me up to reading the whole entire Bible and teaching the whole entire Bible, which opens up your mind to different horizons, and things that in the Bible that are the meat and potatoes that we need to focus on. Now, creation is beautiful, and I love focusing on that. And I know that you may be kind of a subject matter expert on that, Lord, and I really appreciate that. But I want to be a subject matter expert on everything in the Bible, Lord. That way, I could I could do my best to bring people closer to you. And that's my whole focus. So thank you, Lord, for everything you do. I love you in Jesus' name. Amen. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Thank you to all my Patreon members. I really appreciate you. Thank you so much to all my YouTube listeners, subscribers. Thank you so much to everybody that listens on Spotify and everybody that comments. Thank you. I appreciate it. This episode right here is, it's some people might be mad, people might be happy. I don't know. All I do is just try to do my very best as a podcast host to bring guests on, and some people have certain opinions. Some people have different opinions about things. What I ask is that you be graceful and in the comment section. And if you have any questions about anything, please hit me up at Josh Monday _ podcast on Instagram. You could DM me and I will talk to you. And if anybody needs prayer out there, hit me up. I would love to pray for you. God bless you.